Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Okay, we've made it to Tuesday. Hello, everybody. I see the comments coming in. Rachel Hollis did not disappoint. She never does. She posted Rach Talk and a new podcast, and with a guest surprise, Mr. Tony Robbins. Woo! If you're into Tony Robbins. I can't lie, I used to be, once upon a time in my former life, as a self-help wannabe, or a self-help, what's the opposite of a guru? Self-help absorber? An absorber of the goo? A goo-oo? I don't know. That's what I was. And I used to like Tony Robbins. I used to listen to his podcast. I used to watch his videos. I watched the Netflix special about, well, it's not a special, but I watched the Netflix documentary, Not Your Guru, ironically enough, called Not Your Guru. And I was hooked. I thought I just needed to do this. And then my life would be on the correct trajectory. But alas, life is not that simple, folks. There's much more involved in life, despite what self-help gurus may tell you, including Tony Robbins and Rachel Hollis. Anyways, so that's why you're here, to hear about Rachel Hollis's newest updates in her life. I watched Rach Talk, so we're gonna watch that together, but I have not listened to the podcast yet. So that will be I lied. I listened to the intro and the first 10 minutes or so. It's an hour long, so bear with me. But I listened to the beginning of it, and then I had to go because I was on my way to therapy. I think I mentioned that before. That's when I listen to my podcast. Twice a week I go to therapy in person, and that's where I get to consume all podcasts. So if it's not within that 15 to 20 minute drive time, I'm probably not listening to podcasts unless I am doing this live stream. So it'll be fun for both of us. Tony Robbins, if you're unfamiliar, hold on. Let's jump right in, because I have a thing so it's 3:35 Eastern Standard Time currently. I have to be on the road again at 5:30. So this will be a 2-hour podcast or live stream. No more, no less. No, maybe less, but definitely not more, because I have to go. So let's start from who the heck is Tony Robbins, if you haven't heard of him before. Tony Robbins is I call him Papa Robbins, because he's the dad of all this self-help crud. And let me show you a picture of him, because that's the one thing I didn't pull up. And it's important to see what this dude looks like. He's good looking, I suppose, I guess, if you're into that type of thing. I like how all his pictures are, at least these ones, are him with his head cut off. Cropped. Okay. There's, what's her face? What's her name? Marie Forleo. I guess she interviewed him too. Okay. Is there not a reel? Is there like a photo for once? Please. No. Okay, there's only videos. Here's Tony Robbins. So he's giant. He wrote a book. I am not calling him I am calling him a giant, but he wrote a book called Unleash the Giant Within. Ironically or unironically, he wrote that about himself. So how to unleash your giantness. So that's him. He's huge, both physically in stature and also in personality. So he sells conferences, he does coaching, blah, blah, blah. He basically created the blueprint for the grifting, self-help, influencing industry. And Rachel Hollis says as much in her introduction of him in the podcast. So that's what he looks like. You've probably seen him before. He's everywhere. Oprah, I love Oprah for some reasons, and then some reasons Oprah promoted like some woo weirdos in her heyday, and I have a bone to pick about that topic with Oprah specifically. But Oprah was associated with him. He's talked to the Clintons. He's been all around. He tries to pretend, I think, that he's like a celebrity guru, but I have suspicions that he actually is paying to interact with these celebrities. So for example, I think he had an interview with like Bill Clinton at one point back in the day, and you know, you can buy time with celebrities. I mean, that happens all the time. You purchase their time. So as if like someone was going to come speak to your group, you know, or come speak to your leadership team or whatever, you can buy that time. And the person can give a presentation, or you can buy their time and interview them. It's up to you what you do with the hour that you're spending your money on to bring the celebrity in to talk to you. But I think it also then people see Tony Robbins with a celebrity, or see them with a, you know, presidential, at the time, I guess he was a candidate, but it builds the credibility of you as a entrepreneur person, whatever. Anyways, so that's Tony Robbins. So he's been in this game since like the 90s. His whole story is that he, you know, grew up poor, had an abusive family life, left, and then got got trained, coached by this guy, Jim Rohn, who was like, back then, he was like the top dog of the self-help industry. Tony Robbins learned the grift in and out, and then was selling tapes, was selling books, started doing the circuit, and then blew up over time. That's his story. Now, Rachel's story in relation to Tony Robbins is very similar. She's talked about him, and I brought this up. If you've been on this stream for a while, you'll remember that I've said she seems like she's about to start selling Tony Robbins tickets, because he has an affiliate program where you can make a lot of money if you get a lot of people to sign up for his conferences, which I'll show you is $10,000. Well, depending, not all of his conferences, but this conference that he sells is to go to Business Mastery, which is the one that Rachel's went to, $11,000. Okay, $10,995. I ain't playing that game. That's $5 less than $11,000. I almost fell for the trick and down, whatever you call it, rounded down. No, it's $11,000 minus $5. But there's probably a $5 fee to sign up and get a ticket. So yay, full of me, Tony Papa Robbins. All right, so this is Rachel Hollis. If you're not familiar, she is a former self-help guru, current hippie. This is her back. So, okay, I found two things. So this is Rachel's Facebook back from, I'm not gonna play the audio because it's pointless, but this is back from 2016. And this is her second day of being at the Tony Robbins conference. She says she's gone to several conferences, and she says she brought her whole team. She's all excited about her. She's not even at the front row, which is kind of crazy to think of. 26, this is pre-Girl Wash Your Face. So she's like in the back of this. She's not VIP currently, and she's talking about her experience. Thanks, Melissa. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Kia's World. Woo! Okay. Sorry. We'll keep it on target. We'll keep it on task today because I have things to do in 2 hours. All right. So she went back in 2016 to a conference of Tony Robbins. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, a miracle. It's just a miraculous coincidence that she starts the Rise conference like right after that and models it very similarly with the jumping and the music and all that stuff that goes on at Rise conference, or did. Okay, so that's the beginning. Now, in 2018, so this is post Girl Wash Your Face fame, or I guess around the same time, she made this Instagram post. So she's wearing the Tony Robbins Business Mastery hat. All right, now she says here, as most people know who hang out with me for at least 3 minutes, Tony Robbins is my hero. The 2 times I've gone to a conference of his have both been life-changing. And as an entrepreneur of 13 years, I've always wanted to go to his Business Mastery Conference, which again is $11,000. But dude, it's expensive. Okay, I'm glad that she's acknowledging that it's expensive. But dude, it's expensive. Like Oprah expensive. Like Beyonce expensive. Like you just found a nugget in a river in California during the gold rush expensive. Thank you, Gina. Welcome. But Growth and learning are my greatest values, and 35 is a big birthday. And if you want something badly enough, okay, here comes the lie. If you want something badly enough and you work hard and save your money, well then eventually you can afford Oprah-style conferences. So I made it a goal and we started saving over a year, and I got this hat and I wore it during every long run and workout and business trip as a reminder to myself about what we were working for. Who is we? You and yourself? You and Dave? I don't think Dave wanted to go. I remember that. There was a post about that, how Dave, and he wrote it in his first book, how he did not want to go to the Tony Robbins conference, but Rachel forced him to, but basically under threat of divorce. And I guess it just got prolonged, got pushed back. The divorce date got pushed back because he had gone to the Tony Robbins conference reluctantly. And that's what he wrote. That's what his first book was, Get Out of Your Own Way, A Skeptic's Guide to Self-Help and whatever, because he was skeptical about going to Tony Robbins. But he claims after he went, he enjoyed it, so I digress. But anyways, back to this. Okay, just did my last long run in my hashtag business mastery hat before we head out for the actual event, and I'm so excited I can hardly stand it. Your dream doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It just has to light your heart on fire and give you something to work on. And we're back to the hashtag Rachel H. Runs. Chic Tribe, that's her old company, Chic. I forget what it's called, Chic something. Ready for Rise, BM Florida 2018. Okay, cool. So that is 2 years, well, God, 2 years, just 4 years. It's 2022, everybody. Look at your calendars. It is 2022, not 2020. So that was Rachel's most recent Tony Robbins post about, I think, since from then till now. I couldn't find it anywhere, so, you know, it is what it is. Like, it's alleged. But I had heard that she was snubbed by Tony Robbins because she has opened for Tony Robbins at his conference twice, or opened for him in some other capacity. Maybe it wasn't his conference, but in a conference-like setting. And she said there was rumors that Tony Robbins couldn't be bothered with her. Didn't want to spend the time to, you know, say hello, thank you for opening for me, whatever. I couldn't find that in the 5 minutes that I looked for it online today before this live stream, so I cannot confirm currently. But yeah, apparently she was snubbed by Tony, but now has completely forgotten about that. If it did in fact happen, which I'm not saying it did, but I've heard rumors that she was snubbed by him, that she has now forgiven him completely. And it's just, you know, it's fine. And she'll talk about this a little bit in the podcast, but in the beginning at least. He just came out with a new book, or is coming out with a new book about health. Okay? Tony Robbins does not hold any degrees in anything, I don't believe, but definitely not in diet, immunology, nutrition, health, medical, anything. So why you would listen to him tell you how to live your life, especially this is a guy who kind of pokes around in the metaphysical woo-woo bullshit, I'll say. You can look, we're gonna talk about this on Cringefluencers, the channel that I have with Camellia. On Thursday, we're gonna talk about just Tony Robbins, not Rachel Hollis and Tony Robbins, just Tony Robbins. But he gets involved in like alkaline foods. He talks about MLMs. He talks about a bunch of things that are sketchy. Let's just say that. So why he would be someone I would listen to about health. I read one of his books about investing or wealth, and literally it's just an ad for like the guy who takes care of his finances. And like basically it's like a 2-hour book about how you should like hire his financial advisor. It's like, all right, cool. Okay, so Jennifer says the book came out last month, bad reviews. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Also, thank you for commenting. I haven't pulled up the comments. I'm sorry for not pulling up your comments, but make sure not to.
Unfollow me.
I got a new one. Before we start this podcast, I got a new one. If I get banned for some reason on YouTube and I'm no longer allowed to spew my opinions, Dave has some words for me.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
that one low? I think I need to raise it up a little bit. If you're too poor to afford the $11,000 business mastery, Dave has some comments for you.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
More to come. I got a soundbite, my boo thing, and I got a soundbite, I'm a hippie from Rachel. I just got behind today. I'm sorry. All right, everybody. We're ready for episode 261, a conversation with Tony Robbins, only part 1. So we'll have to meet next week and listen to part 2 as well. Okay, so basically her whole, sometimes I read the description, but basically she says everything, I believe, pretty much. She just reads this as her intro, so I'm not going to read it for myself.
But also,
if you want to go read it, it's on the screen. All right, let's roll.
I have to do an intro for today's episode because this is a podcast interview that is like 6 years in the making. Truly. This is one of my, since I started my podcast, this has been a dream guest of mine to interview. And what I think is so incredible and full circle about this experience for me is that when I started my podcast, this felt like a pipe dream. It felt like there was no way that this could ever happen. And it happened. I got to interview Tony Robbins. And Tony...
For the record, I feel like Tony Robbins kind of gives interviews fairly easily. I've seen small YouTube channels, like a YouTube channel with I don't know, the subscribers I have, 10,000, interview him. He does these press junkets where he'll sit in a room and people will file in. So press from wherever will come in. And basically you just have to know his PR company. And so he's not flying out there to each individual place. They're coming to him to interview him. I've seen him do that a lot. So I'm surprised that Rachel wouldn't have been involved before. And so I don't know, but that's what she did this time. She also was one of many to go to his house to interview him. It wasn't like he was coming on the show or they were meeting specifically to talk to Rachel. He's promoting his book. His PR people booked a bunch of journalists, as Dave would say, reporters, bloggers and people who are sympathetic to him. And they got to interview him for some time. So just wanted to clarify, it's not like he gave her a one-on-one because he likes Rachel Hollis.
If you're not familiar, is really the godfather of modern day personal development. Personal development has gone back, forever, to Earl Nightingale and, positive thinking tapes on, not even on tape, on old records. So it's something that has existed for a really long time, but kind of the way it's practiced today, the idea of going to a conference and immersing yourself or reading certain books or working on mindset, this industry is really in a lot of ways built around him and his success. And whether
built around him and built through courage.
Or don't, whether you like him or don't, he as a sort of figure has played a huge role in my life and the work that I do. You maybe have heard me talk about this, but about 6 years ago, I went to UPW, which is one of Tony's conferences. UPW stands for Unleash the Power Within. So it's I want to say maybe 4 days. And I took my team from work and we drove to San Jose from Los Angeles.
It also stands for You Puny Women. No, it doesn't. But Tony Robbins is notorious for being pretty harsh and mean to women. We'll talk about that on Cringefluencers. We're going to stick to the Rachel conversation today.
And we rented an Airbnb and we all went to this personal development conference. And I can tell you without question, there were 5 of us there and each of us have very different personality types. And every single person was changed for the better by that experience. Every single person got something different out of it. Jack, who you guys may know, he's my producer and longtime collaborator.
I'm just going to respond. Yes, I have seen Mooncat's video about Tony Robbins. Excellent. Everything she does, everything Mooncat does, touches gold. I suggest everyone watch that at some point. After the stream, though. Or...
unfollow me.
Okay. Just kidding.
Like Jack had this dream to own a van and sort of trick out the inside and make it like a small home. And I remember that was his big takeaway from UPW. I was over there like, I want to have a media company, and I want to like be ambitious and do these things. And I want to have a conference, and I want to teach women because I think that it's different. I think personal development shows up differently for us. And I want to create content for women that serves them and loves them. Like Jack decided to like, fit out the interior of a Sprinter van, and I decided to like start Rise Conference. But we all got something out of it.
Save Jack, man. Jack and Jeff need to be rescued from this company. Jeff is Jeffrey, the dog, just wants to play ball. Rachel refuses. Jack is the guy who has to be behind the camera while Rachel belittles him for years. And Jack was also the director of the Built Through Courage documentary, which never actually came to fruition. So Jack just needs to find a new job. Jack, if you're watching, there's better opportunities out there. Have a little dignity and stop letting Rachel Hollis harass you via YouTube videos. However, he did get to go to Hawaii. So, I mean, I guess it evens out. Also, the background is Fiji, which Tony Robbins basically owns Fiji, apparently, according to the internet. So that's why I'm in Fiji today. All right, back. I love how she says like, my dreams were to start a media company and be a badass, and Jack's dream was to be a loser in a van. Whatever. I mean, she's not saying that, but she's basically saying that. Like, Jack's stupid idea was to live in a Sprinter van, and my idea was to change the world for the better. Free Jack.
Experience, and so many good things came out of it. And honestly, it was a dream forever to get to sit down with him. I have opened up for him twice, meaning like I was the keynote that went on stage before him. But in both of those experiences, I never got to meet him. And I always just feel like things will happen when they're supposed to, and things will happen when the timing is right. And even this time when they said, hey, we'd love to have you sit down with Tony, and we were planning it, and everyone was like, aren't you excited? How are you feeling? And I just kept thinking, until I'm actually sitting with him, I'm not going to believe that it's happening, because I just been dreaming about it for so long. It had been in my Start Today journal for so long. I had been writing it down for so long that I just was holding it very loosely. And I do think that that's a really powerful way to approach any big goals that you have in your life. Is I stay very focused on them, but I hold them loosely. I just believe that God is going to deliver those things. The universe is going to deliver those things like when it's meant to happen. And I'm so happy with how it happened.
Yeah, I see this comment. So she's just said that she opened for him twice, but didn't get to meet him. But I've also heard the rumor that he purposely didn't want to meet her. But she's kind of forgetting like, oh, that part, or she's not bringing that up at least now. So, and I wasn't able to find it, but granted, I only looked very quickly about like snub, Tony Robbins, Rachel Hollis snubbed by, she never said the name, but everyone assumed it was Tony Robbins, I think back then. But again, I couldn't find it, so can't confirm.
Because it, like, if I had gotten to meet him 5 years ago or 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago, I don't think it would have been the experience that it was. I don't think, like, I just kept saying to myself and like my boyfriend, because he was like, oh, are you like freaking out? And I just kept saying, I just want.
Okay, boyfriend was mentioned after. I like it when it's 3 minutes or less, but we're still under 5. So boothing was mentioned at today. We can say 4:43. So I should make a soundbite for that. Like boothing is mentioned. As soon as he's mentioned, we timestamp it. So we're 4 minutes in, 4 minutes and 43 seconds in. Boothing, boyfriend was mentioned. Okay, just wanted to point that out.
Present in my body. That was my goal when I met Oprah. Like when I meet people that I admire so much, I just don't want to be so excited or so freaked out that I don't feel any of it and I'm not present. So I just kept thinking like, I want to be present in this experience. And if I let myself get too excited, I'm not going to be able to do that. So it was, I flew.
That's such a good point, Franny Pan. She says like manifested, just believe it. It's always going to happen. And now she's saying like, I didn't want to believe it until it happened because I don't want to disappoint myself. That is not how manifestation works, Rachel. First of all, it doesn't work at all. Second of all, it doesn't work like that. The way that you're saying it works. Good point. Points for Franny Pan.
Into Miami from Austin to go sit down with him. And, I'm taking care of my babies, and I don't want to be gone a second longer than I need to. So I
Welcome,
flew in
Savvy.
that morning, was meant to interview him in the afternoon, stayed one night, and then flew home the next day. But the interesting thing about flying out in the morning, I took a 7 a.m. flight. I wasn't interviewing him till 2:30, plenty of time. I like took a shower, but I didn't put makeup on, and I was wearing sweats, like sweatpants. I didn't do my hair, nothing. I just like jumped on a plane, and fully intending that when I got there, I would, get cute, put on this cute outfit I had planned, do my hair, do my makeup. And I got to the hotel and my room wasn't ready. And I still had like a couple of hours until I.
Okay, now this part she's saying, she gets to the hotel in Miami, her room's not ready, she has to get ready to meet Tony Robbins. Now, if this was her telling a manifesting story and it worked out positively, and she says it works out positively, but whatever, that's her take on it. But if this was to work out and it was like a negative experience, she'd be like, oh, my angel spirit guides like were protecting me from getting ready because I wasn't supposed to meet this predator man or whatever, or this man who snubbed me allegedly before. Like my spirit guides were protecting me, whatever. But because she wants the story to be positive for Tony Robbins, she's gonna flip it and twist it and mental aerobics around it, mental gymnastics around it, so that it, like this experience where she was, thanks Bethany. This experience where she's unable to get ready for this interview becomes a positive, even though if she was telling it from a different point of view, it would have been like, oh, the red flags were there, how she, says now, retrospect about Dave, like all these horrible red flags were popping up and I just didn't see it. Well, this is a red flag. If you're truly believing in the universe, the fact that your hotel room wasn't ready and you didn't have time to get ready to interview him should have been a lesson like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? Am I wrong?
So I'm like, it's fine. Like that'll be ready. And just the minutes keep ticking by and it gets closer and closer. And I realize at some point, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go do this interview. He's on a press tour. He's interviewing with all these people. I'm about to go to this interview. I'm about to go to his home and I have not brushed my hair today. Like I'm not going to be able to put on makeup. I'm not going to be able to put on a cute outfit. And I just was like, so at peace with the whole thing. It made me really proud because I thought if this had happened a couple of years ago, I like would have freaked out. I would have thought that I needed to show up in a certain way in order to earn my right to sit in that room. Does that make sense? I had to really get out of that mentality or that way of thinking and have been really intentional. Maybe you guys see this if you watch the podcast on YouTube, is I'm really intentional. Like sometimes I'm wearing makeup and sometimes I look cute. And sometimes like right now, I didn't brush my hair. It is what it is, because I'm really trying to emphasize for myself as a woman that my intelligence, my ability to be a good podcast host, my ability to write well, to communicate with you, to create great content has absolutely nothing to do with the way that I look.
I gotta agree with Rachel for a second. So if you don't like me agreeing with Rachel,
unfollow me.
But actually don't. I have a very similar take on this. However, I don't think she makes it very clear as to why that's her take, or she kind of just does it and doesn't explain it, which, whatever, fine, I'll give her a break. But I also feel, makeup should not define me. If I don't want to wear makeup, it shouldn't mean that I'm dressed down or don't care. I care very much. Most men don't wear makeup on a daily basis, and they are never considered dressed down if they have, a professional shirt on. They're not like, oh, you don't have makeup on, what's wrong with you? So I think it's a double standard. Or high heels. I don't want to wear high heels most of the time because they're uncomfortable. If I want to wear comfortable shoes, I don't think I should be told I'm not professional. So her and I have a very similar take on that. I think that we should be judged for our intelligence, but I also don't have a problem with makeup or dressing up or looking cute or any of that. So I will give her a little bit of credit because I think not, doing all this stuff can be helpful for women, especially to see someone on a high platform with a lot of followers not wearing makeup or not, adhering to a certain dress code. So that is my one nugget of I agree with Rachel today. But also, we got the rest of the podcast to go.
Time I thought I had to look a certain way, act a certain way, dress a certain way, be a certain way in order to be taken seriously. And so I just thought like, oh, it's such a cool thing to get to sit down with someone I'd wanted to interview for so long and just do it as myself. And it really did take so much pressure off me. I think that if I had like gone through the full, like, glamorizing myself or, putting on makeup or whatever, it just would have added a bit of, I don't know, something to the experience that I didn't want there. So I ended up showing up at his house wearing exactly what I wore on the plane. And it was great because I was so comfortable. Like I literally sat like crisscross apples.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And I see people are commenting like, yeah, the hotel has a lobby, right? Like maybe not makeup, but definitely you could probably put on your outfit. I don't think like because the hotel room wasn't right. I wonder if she just was late for her flight or something and she doesn't want to admit it, so she's telling this whole fabricated story. Because honestly, too, I think like the hotel would probably be. Well, I guess like you check into a hotel at 3 p.m. If she's saying it's morning time and her interview is at 2, what hotel allows you to check in? So maybe this is on her and she's just blaming the hotel. Anyways, this whole story, again, most of the story she tells could probably be made up for the most part.
And interviewed him like on a comfy chair. And I really appreciated the experience. I'm so glad that I got to meet him and connect with him in real life and really, truly experience this person who, if you've ever seen him at conference, he is bigger than life. He is larger than life. He's like at my conferences, I speak on stage for 5 hours and I feel like that's superhuman. He literally will teach for 12 hours for days and days in a row. And you're like, how? This guy is like an
I think this is a tactic too, that people who do these large group trainings, which is what I would call a conference in this style, not all conferences, if you go for a political, oh my God, not political, professional reason, like you're going to the conference of Oncologists of America or whatever, or I keep thinking of like the weirdest conventions, like the Granite Grinders of America conference. I don't think that it's a large group training in the way that I think of like a way a cult does a large group training where they just call for a big group of people and funnel you down by having this like in-person event. But I've heard that, the people who really want to make money will go for 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours because it breaks you down. You're so physically tired, hungry, cold, whatever. They have things to buy during the whole time you're there. So, okay, you go to the conference, but then you have the courses, the trainings, the coaching that you can buy that's like upselling. So let's say the conference costs you $10,000, $11,000 to go. The coaching might be $20,000 a year. And if you've been like on your feet for 10 hours, 12 hours, listening to Tony Robbins talk about his life or whatever he talks about, being a great business owner, you might be more inclined to purchase those, make those impulse purchases because you're tired, exhausted, and you have 3 days of this. So it basically is almost like, from what I've heard, I don't know this to be true necessarily, but it makes sense to me. It breaks you down so that you're more apt to be manipulated by the marketing and the feeling of like, oh, I'm so tired. I just walked on coals. I'm like so hyped up. I got people banging music next to me and screaming and going, the whole environment of being at a concert for that long might make you feel like I'm going to go take this chance and spend 20 grand that I don't have to get coached on Zoom by Tony Robbins, assistant or whatever. So I don't think necessarily it's like, wow, amazing, he's so giving of his time. It's like, that's most likely a tactic to try to get you to buy more stuff that he has to sell.
And this cannot be real. And I was so grateful to get to sit with him in real life and like meet the human being who was so sweet, and his energy was so tender and so real and so like loving, and just not there's something to be said for the person who shows up on stage at a UPW, because man, that energy kicked my butt at the exact moment in life when I needed my butt kicked. But I was really blessed to get to meet the real person. So got to talk to him we talked about health and how to have better energy and mindset and the 3 most important questions you can ask yourself. And it's a really tactical conversation. But truthfully, my favorite part is the end of our chat, because I really wanted to be able to connect with Tony on a level that wasn't maybe always what he's used to talking about. And I try really hard in all of my interviews. My intention is to give the best interview, to give y'all information. Like I want to give you the tactics and the ideas from these guests. So I don't really interview people asking them what I'd like to know. I try an interview asking what I think the audience wants to know. But at the end, I was like, you know what? This is my last like moment with him. I really just want to ask him something that's like from me and from my heart. And I asked him a question and he ended up getting really emotional and he ended up crying. And then I was crying and like the crew was crying. And it just was like this beautiful, very unexpected moment. And the incredible thing about Tony is that he is present and he does his best to serve well, which often means that what was meant to be a 45-minute conversation became 2 hours, which is what happened in our case. So this episode is so great that I'm turning it into a 2-part series. Hi, I'm Rachel Hollis.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hollis. Do you ever wonder about dinosaurs? Me too. That's why I started a podcast. Okay, we're going to skip that part.
On this show, we talk about it's
such a long intro. I love how everyone in the comments basically was saying what I was saying about the mental fatigue and stuff before I even started saying it. So you guys already know. That's awesome. I'm so impressed by everyone's comments because they're always so just on point. Okay, back to the podcast.
Hack it so that we can all understand.
So
These are conversations. This is information for the curious. This is the Rachel Hollis Podcast. Let's just start with, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I'm freaking out, but other than that, I'm doing really well.
What are you freaking out about?
This is a culmination of a lot of years of seeing this moment and not knowing that it would come to fruition in quite this way. But now I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. This feels right. Yeah, so I'm pumped. And we've spoken at, I've gotten to speak at a couple of your events, but I've never actually met you. So to be sitting in your house.
We've been passing running. I was following you right afterwards. So we kind of passed for 2 seconds.
Yeah, so it's rad. You know, the new book is all about health. And I was
rad. I hate that word. I'm sorry. I know some people like that word, but I think Dave and Heidi and Rachel have ruined rad for me. I can never go back. I'm sorry.
Curious, coming off of 2 years of everything shifting for so many people. What are some of the things that you've seen? How has that affected people mindset-wise?
I think we've all seen, unfortunately, right? You've seen last year, I think it was the highest number of overdoses on drugs, suicide for kids, ideation of suicide, actual suicide. But I think it was the CDC that said 1 in 5 kids under the age of 30 considered suicide during that time. I mean, it's pretty horrific. Johns Hopkins just did a study talking about the lockdowns and their impact and what they unfortunately know and understood they would do. And so our kids, I think, is the biggest piece. I was fortunate here to be in Florida, so we've been open the whole time our kids have been in school. But in so many places, the kids aren't in school; they're forced.
I guess that I guess that sort of gives his opinion on masking because he's like, luckily we're in Florida; it's been open. I'm also in Florida. I'm not in Miami, but I don't necessarily say, I was so lucky to live in Florida. We were open the whole time. It was like actually terrifying for 95% of the time we were open, but you just dealt with it and put the mask on and face the harassment. But I guess he's saying that he was glad that we were open. So interesting perspective, Tony Papa Robbins.
Mask.
Right.
And the science has been evolving, and as it's been evolving, unfortunately, there have been consequences. So I think there's a lot of fear out there, obviously, still. But I also think there are a lot of people that are kind of fed up and ready to move to the next level of their lives after 2 years. And I think that's healthy because we have to restore our children, we have to restore the environment, and we also have to learn how to live with risk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 4-letter word now, and if you saw the people that started our country, they had a 1 in 3 chance to make it for a year. They would, I think, be turning over in their grave at how much we've been conditioned. It's nobody's fault. It's in the media environment we're in. Media people really care. I don't think they're trying to harm anybody. I think most of them are trying to educate people. But, they also have to enrich their shareholders, and the only way that is get your attention.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's not about informing you anymore. It's about startling you. When I startle you, I get your attention.
Okay, don't disagree 1,000%, but what the heck do you do? You're literally opening message about in this interview with Rachel Hollis, who is a former mommy blogger, event planner, journal creator, is about teen suicide. So is that not supposed to startle you into paying attention? It's only the media that does that? Give me a break.
We live in a world where a whole series of things happen we didn't understand, and we overreacted perhaps in some cases, maybe underreacted in others. But what it's left people with is a lot of uncertainty. And so one of the things I wanted to do was to bring to people that, we're living in this one place where everybody feels like they're vulnerable, and yet we're actually at one of the greatest times in human history that most people don't know about.
Right.
Because the average doctor cares so deeply, but the half-life of medical education today, according to Harvard, is between 18 and 24 months, which
Yeah,
means...
that was a trip when I read that book.
And by the way, that was in 2017. They said by this time, 2022, it would be 73 days, which means you spent your entire...
Huh? Medical training, medical school is now 20 hours, or what do you say, 20 months? So if you go to med school now, it's just 2 years and then you're done? Okay, I'm going to sign up because I thought it was like 10 years. Let me go back because I just want to hear what he's talking about because I missed that.
So deeply. But the half-life of medical education today, according to Harvard, is between 18 and 24 months, which means...
What the hell does half-life of medical education? And she's like, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. What is he talking about? Please someone let me know.
It was a trip when I read that book.
And by the way, that was in 2017. They said by this time, 2022, it would be 73 days, which means you spent your entire life, 4 years, and additional education, obviously, but those initial 4 years, work your guts out, and literally half of that's gone. Say, let's call it a year and a half later. So who educates that person, unfortunately, is the pharmaceutical salesperson. And that's how we had the opioid crisis, because they lied. So imagine you're a doctor caring about people, and you want to do anything to help them get out of pain. Oh, this is totally great. They won't get addicted, and they get addicted and die. I mean, doctors are in the worst position ever because things happen so fast today, and there's only so much they can do. I often tell my friends, sometimes they get frustrated when doctors don't have the answer. It's like, hey, chill out a little bit. Imagine you're walking by a river and you're a devoted person. This book is filled with the best doctors in the world, best scientists, best Nobel laureates, 150 of them I interviewed to make this work. So none of it's my opinion.
Right.
But I said, you meet these people. They're the most dedicated human beings. You probably have a doctor's told.
Okay, this started off like very strong in the sense of like strongly controversial and confusing. So basically he's saying that, okay, Florida's the best because we didn't have to mask the whole time. People are afraid, they're fearing. Now we live with risk, which is 4 letters. What was it before? Risque? Now it's just risk. I think we've always had risk. And he said the founding fathers would be rolling in their grave because back in the 1700s, they didn't live as long as we do. It's what I gathered. And now he's saying that medical half-life is 18 months, which is crazy. And that doctors are no longer educated. They're educated by the pharmaceutical companies, and they lie. Okay, and the opioid crisis was caused by that. So there's some truth to what he's saying, and there's some like, I don't know if it's on purpose confusing or what, but the opioid crisis, I do agree that part of the crisis came from lying, the pharmaceutical companies lying. What's Sackler, the company that created, OxyContin? Correct me if I'm wrong. They were so motivated by money, by greed, by bonuses that their sales reps would, even though there were studies that were showing that there was addiction, that there was issues, they were marketing it in the way that it made it seem like no one gets addicted to these pain medicines, these opioids. And so they were lying to doctors, but the doctors also had some responsibility in they were getting kickbacks, they were getting flown out to these conferences. They probably got to meet Tony Robbins, during one of these medical conferences where they were getting comped and getting to go to like, I watched a fictional take on it, but they were saying that the doctors got to fly out to Arizona and go to like a resort and hang out if they were to keep prescribing their patients the opioids. So yes, there's part of it, but he's also not saying, he's saying like, they were misinformed. They were wrong, they were lied to, but not the greed part. Because if he was to talk about the greed part, he would also have to look at himself a little bit or face the criticism of, well, what about your greed? What about you hosting these conferences during pandemics? And what do you selling Zoom calls for thousands of dollars? I think a lot of people would think that he is also someone who struggles with greed. And I'm also going to turn this down to 1. It's at 1.2, which usually is fine for Rachel, but he talks a little faster, so I'm going to slow it down because I think I'm missing some of the context with like how fast he's going. Okay, I'm going to go to the comments. I'm going to play it, but I'm also going to look at the comments now.
Devoted will probably give up their own health for you. So the metaphor is you're walking along and you hear somebody in the river and they're drowning. It's like they don't care about themselves. They'll dive in, pull you out, give you mouth to mouth. But as soon as they do that, they hear 2 more screams. Get one, save them, get others, save them. They're exhausted. They hear 4 more screams. They don't have time to go upstream and see who's throwing them in. So this book is about what's upstream so you can avoid ever being in that position, right?
They say that.
Then we have a BetterHelp commercial. I'll let this play so you can hear her BetterHelp pitch. Not the whole thing, but I think it's interesting how in the middle of this conversation, this commercial pops up.
if you want to know what people really value, you won't listen to their words. You'll look at their bank statement. And that is true for me. If you look at my credit card bill, you will find that I spend the most money on self-care, on therapy, on coaching, on doing things that make me the best version of myself, which is why BetterHelp has been a sponsor of my podcast for years.
I don't think she's I hope she's in therapy. I hope everyone, honestly, that can afford it is in therapy, because I think it's tremendously helpful. I don't think she's going to BetterHelp for therapy. I could be wrong, but she sets this whole thing up like, if you look at my bank account, I spend the most money on self-care. That's why BetterHelp is a sponsor of mine, because they're paying for my bank account. Not that she uses them. It just was worded weirdly. Okay, we're going to skip past this now.
BetterHelp therapist in first month.
And so we're trying to...
Okay.
.com/rise. That's BetterHelp.com/rise.
And so we're trying to find the breakthroughs that are there. Because right now, Rachel, what's happening is most people know technology has grown dynamically. About every 18 months, we double in power and half in cost. That's why, I had one of the original cell phones. You're probably too young to remember, but I had one. It was, a foot long. It weighed 2 pounds. It cost $4,000. That'd be $10,000 today.
Right.
And you had to charge it for 6 hours to get 30 minutes of talk time, right? And now you got your Apple phone that you get for free with a contract, and it's 100 times the power of what the Apollo mission took somebody to the moon in the back.
Right.
So technology is going really rapidly now on our bodies because we are code. Meaning, I'm sure you've heard about CRISPR and gene editing. I mean, there's a young man that was on America's Got Talent that can see now again because of gene therapy. Wow. There are children who have sickle cell anemia that it's cured. We're not talking about, we're dealing with it. We're talking about cures, taking it right out of the DNA. So things like that are happening. And then things less high tech, but they're just as powerful. So, people that have osteoarthritis, tens of millions of people. It's unbelievably painful. So they've always taken all these painkillers, which are not good for you, right? And so there's a company right now that's in third phase of the FDA, so your audience knows. Mm-hmm. First phase is safety, second is effectiveness, efficacy, and then the third one is efficacy at scale, and then you get approved. So
Okay, he's going way off topic. We were talking about sickle cell anemia, CRISPR, now we're talking about arthritis, now we're talking about the 3 phases of a trial. Jeez. What is he trying, like, what audience, again, what audience is this for? Is this for Rachel Hollis's woo-woo hippie followers that she now apparently has? I don't know what, I get that his book is about health, but this just seems to be all over the place and she's like barely getting a word in, which is surprising. Usually she's the one that's cutting off all the guests. But I feel like I'm like, whoa, I gotta if I can't take a second to even look or have a sip of my LaCroix cola. Tony, relax. Papa Robbins. Chill out.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
Okay? I guess he does have a job. His job is to do this, but your job's not to slow down, apparently. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go back.
That final stage. So if they get approved, which they think they will in the fall of this year or beginning next year, you take a single injection and your whole body's racked with arthritis, or you have a knee, whatever it is. You regrow all your tendons in 11 months because your own stem cells are stimulated by this thing called the Wnt pathway. And literally you grow like 16-year-old tendons, even if you're 40, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, because it takes the original code and uses it to regrow your tendons. I mean, people that have anxiety or PTSD, one of the tragedies in our country right now, and a lot of moms are dealing with this with somebody else in their family, perhaps, or maybe a father or somebody, but people who go to war and come back, or people who have been through rapes or they've been through horrific things. I work with Underground Railroad. We've sponsored literally, I guess now almost 18,000 children to free them. And these kids have been locked up in the most horrific situation being used.
The Underground Railroad? Am I totally idiotic to not know? I mean, I know what it was in the past. Is this a nonprofit or something? Or is he literally speaking about an Underground Railroad that he's helping with?
how do you turn them around? It's so inside. So I know how to do that. I've had a gentleman years ago that came to my Date with Destiny, and he'd been to both Afghanistan and Iraq, dark glasses because the lights alone could set him off, night sweats, shakes, everything, right? Just horrific. By the end of 2 hours, I got his glasses off, got all of it out. I actually brought him on CNN, and a female producer cried when she met him because she saw how he was and saw how he changed. But if I work 24 hours a day, I can't catch the 22. Yeah. So I looked for a scalable solution. Well, Rachel, right now there's a single injection the Army has just found, done a 3-year study, 85% successful in getting rid of anxiety and PTSD extreme. So I sponsored 100 vets. The first vet I ever sponsored, I'll never forget because I'm still in touch with him.
Prove it. I want to see proof of all of this. And someone in the comments of a different video was asking for proof because he talks about all the philanthropy and charity that he does, but there's very little proof, I guess, or some people question whether the amount that he says he gives to others and the way that he gives may not be quite accurate. I would like to see proof of these sponsored vets.
Writes me and says, I just got back from Afghanistan. He's like having to be able to hug my children, having to be able to even be around my wife. He goes, everything makes me either enraged or the world's in black and white. And he said, there's no color to my life. And I tried to commit suicide twice. He didn't know me personally. I just created the sponsorship. And he said, so I just want to thank you. He said, 20 minutes after the shot, I still have the memories, but none of the emotions.
Wow. What? He got a shot? Okay, this is the CRISPR thing he's talking about? I'm so confused. He went out to 20 different places. He was like, the guy on CNN, he did an interview, he was blind, he couldn't see, he had PTSD, he was whatever. Now this guy did a scalable solution because I can't spend my time dealing with just one person because how dare I do that? I need to help everyone in the world with my knowledge and wisdom of in which I have just created in my own brain. I don't have any education because why would I educate myself in anything? Because I don't know, I guess I'm just Tony Robbins and I can just do whatever I want. So then I sponsored this guy and then he got shot. What shot? Am I missing something?
And he said, everything's in color again. He said, I went and hugged my wife and children for the first time. And he's helped me get other people to go through the program. Literally 85% successful. It's a shot that when you get stuck in what's called sympathetic, really adrenalized, which is what PTSD is, it literally breaks the pattern.
This is Rachel's contribution to this podcast. I heard that. Yeah, I read that. Oh, yeah. It's very useful.
So usually it's one shot or a maximum of 2 shots 1 week apart, and the entire nervous system resets. So we're living in a world where things that seemed impossible are here right now. They're not things that are 20 or 30 years in the future that you might guess. And so I wanted to take all of these things, the simple things you can do with your body, whether you sleep.
Okay, so then this is something I love that self-help gurus do. They'll use this story. Maybe it's fake, maybe it's not. I have no idea because it doesn't even make sense to me. But he's saying this army vet from Iraq got a shot, maximum of 2 shots, that changed his life and made his life color. He hugged his wife again for the first time. Okay, lovely. And he's saying that story is relevant to anybody because we're living in a time where this technology exists today and not 30 years in the future. So, and then he'll go on to, I'm assuming, I did not hear this part, I only heard the first 10 minutes, so this is all new to me too. So I'm assuming he's gonna go into a thing about with all these advances of technology, it's worth re-examining your health by reading this book. That's my guess. That's his marketing ploy. That whole thing about talking about numbers and how many shots you get, and how many weeks it takes, and what CNN producer did, is all to confuse you, bobble you, because you're going to be listening to this while you drive and not really paying attention and breaking it down like we are in the comments. And now he's going to talk about everyone we're in the future. This is one example of a medical miracle, allegedly. And of course he has some sort of connection to it, which I don't understand the connection to it either. But now he's going to apply it to your life. And Rachel does that too. She gives an example about her life, her kids, something that happened to her, and then she applies it to everybody. So antidote, copy, apply all. That seems to be the Tony Robbins blueprint that Rachel Hollis has taken and used and is now being the recipient of on the other side.
Breathe and exercise. Of course, those also, and little shortcuts there. But also, what are the things you can do for your kids? What can you do for your spouse? Most importantly for women, what can you do for yourself? Because I got to tell you, I have a house full of women, as you can see. I've got a I've got 5 kids and 5
Lucky you.
grandkids.
We're the
Lucky, very lucky me. But I have a 10-month-old daughter now. That was COVID. We said we'll give it one last chance. And I have a 48-year-old daughter. So my respect for women is through the roof. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how a single mom with even one child versus multiple children, or single mom working mom, how they do it, because I've been through this for a while. I got 5 kids and 5 grandkids, but at this stage of my life again, seeing what my wife goes through, what my family goes through here, to bring this beautiful soul in the world. And every man here is blessed because we all came through a woman.
Right.
Nobody made it without a woman. So there's an entire chapter.
Right. Women give birth. Woo! We are worthy. We give birth to men. Woo! Great. Wonderful.
Unfollow me.
Women's health that I did not write. And all the book, I brought everybody together, but I wanted to be written from women's perspectives. Yeah. So Dr. Carolyn DeLuca and 2 other incredibly brilliant physicians, and showing women solutions that aren't often talked about, and how they can find solutions. After having a baby, what happens to you?
Tony Robbins is going to give women solutions about having babies. Give me a fucking break. I hate this already.
What happens to you physically? What happens to your desire for intimacy? And so there's some peptides that will, if you want to recreate that desire, that actually do it. Men have blue pills, not just blood flow.
Right.
For women, it's...
Oh, so, okay. So we've got, it was started with women giving birth. Now we're worthy. Now we're going to talk about women's sex drive. That's the most important topic to women, is improving and increasing our sex drive. Yeah, that's a women's issue for sure. Definitely not something that would also favor the male perspective. I mean, I think it's great. I think if that was available to women, take it, love it, live it. But is this like the top of what's concerning women today? No. That's what I mean to say.
A lot more. She's trying to think about the kids and the house and themselves and her work and make a difference in the world. And maybe they've got a spouse, and it's like, how do I do all that? Men tend to be able to just focus on one thing at a time. Women's brains work differently.
Absolutely.
But this is a neurological tool.
Whoa. Let's go back. Did he just say women's brains function differently? This is phrenology. We're getting into this now, that women's brains function differently. Do different races' brains function differently? This seems to be citation needed.
Right.
For women, it's a lot more. She's trying to think about the kids and the house and themselves and her work and make a difference in the world. And maybe they've got a spouse, and it's like, how do I do all that? Men tend to be able to just focus on one thing at a time.
Since fucking when? Men seem to be able to focus on one thing at a time. That's nice. I'm sure it's not because women pick up the slack half the time in most of these relationships with the children and with the house care, which gets no attention or appreciation, or, in the capitalist world, it's not seen as something valuable. Oh my God. I'm afraid to go on.
Men's brains work differently.
Absolutely.
But this is a neurological tool. It's just simple peptides, little.
Okay, so he says women's brains function differently. And then Rachel says, yes, it does. Yes, they do. I hate to go back again because I don't want to listen to it again, but that seems like I need to know the science. What are you talking about? Is there some study I'm unaware of? I'm pretty sure I've learned in my very limited education. I mean, I got a bachelor's degree in a state university. I never heard that women and men's brains function differently. This is new information to me.
Molecules that trigger the brain to be able to feel that enjoyment again, or lasers that change the texture of what's happened to a woman, literally painless lasers that overnight. There's one woman who, had incontinence. She's only 41 years old, but she's had 3 children and really rough situation, and never even told her husband that it's not that she doesn't love him or doesn't want him, but couldn't enjoy the sensual experience of life. One treatment with this femi laser, and she's now able to have that intimate experience and want it and experience it. So most people give up, because if you go to standard of care, you'll find where.
Okay, so now we're talking about women getting painless lasers to improve their sex life, and soldiers get a shot to cure their PTSD. Okay.
Just with Dr. Peter Diamandis, a good friend of mine. He's a rocket scientist and a Harvard MD.
He always pulls this shit. This is what he did in his books too, and his like podcast. Like, oh, this really good friend of mine, Albert Einstein. He's a PhD and da da da. Like, yeah, I'm sure you guys met once, maybe for a photo. I don't think this guy is your friend. He says everyone's his really good friend, and he's always. It's like Joe Rogan says the same things. Like, oh, my really good friend. It's like you've met them once. That's not your really good friend. He does this constantly to give himself credibility. Like, oh, I have a friend who's a rocket scientist at Harvard. Like, okay, show me the proof. Show me your texts. Show me the memes that you send to each other. Papa Robbins.
Unfollow me.
And where's the other one?
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
That's unrelated.
He was just talking about the fact that he just read the recent study of that in almost every industry in medicine, it's about 20 to 22 years behind what the latest situation is. And so I experienced that myself when I had something happen to me that was supposed to end my career. So what we're trying to do is bring people the best, keep it really simple, and say, here's where your options are, that people don't even know are options.
Right. But does this feel like sort of a response to almost the hopelessness that we've sort of encountered?
I didn't intend it that way, but it is.
Yeah.
Because like hope to me is,
Rachel's got her baby voice on again. I don't like it. Yeah. She's really like feminized. I feel like because maybe she's trying to speak up and she feels nervous because he's such a powerful voice and force. But her question, I don't really understand her question. Is it a response to what?
a better strategy is options are that people don't even know are options.
I went back.
Right. But does this feel like sort of a response to almost the hopelessness that we've sort of encountered?
I didn't intend it that way, but it is.
Yeah.
Because
What hopelessness? About what? What do we? Oh my God, I'm so confused. I'm sorry. I try to really follow thoroughly to like give some sort of analysis. I'm finding it very difficult to even follow the train of thought in this conversation thus far. I'm just gonna play it for a little bit and hope that it kind of comes full circle, because I really am confused. I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
hope to me is a good strategy. A better strategy is an experience. Right? Hope's a good place to start. But if I can give you something, an experience, then you know it's true.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is create things that people could experience quickly and go, it's more than hope. This is real.
Right.
But I didn't write the book honestly initially for that intent. I wrote it because I got really messed up. I've always had this fear of cancer. I don't know, have you ever had any major fears about any particular disease in your life?
I have a lot of mental illness in my family.
Okay,
and I
so
have an
that'd be
older
a concern for
brother
you.
who is schizophrenic.
In my family, there was cancers. And I was really young.
Your brother, yeah. Well, my family has cancer. It's like, okay. Great interview. This is a lovely conversation. Oh, yeah, you have a mental illness? Cool. Well, my family has cancer, so let's talk about me for a moment and for the next hour.
I worked 20-hour days, and I was blessed to be able to work with some really amazing people and turn their lives around, business people, politicians, some extraordinary athletes. So by the time I was 20, I was, rocking it, so to speak. And then, I don't know, that part of your brain that most of us have in there, that survival brain kicks in every now and then and starts telling you stuff, like all the lies you wrote about in your book, right? That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from your heart.
Right.
It doesn't come from your spirit. It doesn't come from God.
Right.
It comes from the survival brain that it's no longer needing to avoid a saber-toothed tiger and make us freeze or make us, fight or flight. So now we worry about what people think about us, or do we have enough money?
That is always what these alpha male influencers talk about. They always bring up saber-toothed tigers as if this is a relevant topic at all. They're like, oh, men need to take this supplement because remember back in the day when saber-toothed tigers, like we don't live like that anymore and we need to go back to that. It's like, why is this like on everyone's mind? Saber-toothed tigers and what, humans did back then to survive. Why is that relevant at all? It's not, but they all just take each other's words and move it around and try to sell it as something new.
Or how do we look? Or are we enough? And all those things. So what happened for me was all of a sudden my brain started going, you're going to die young. That's why it all happened so quick.
Oh,
and I didn't just think it, Rachel. I started obsessing about it. And I'm smarter than that. But when you get in that locked place, I wasn't there every moment. I started dreaming about not dying by being hit by a truck. That'd be easy, slowly through cancer. And so if you focus on something enough.
Hell yeah, you're going to manifest that.
So I manifested first.
Hell yeah, you're going to manifest it. Okay, then why, if you worry about having schizophrenia, are you saying that you have schizophrenia because you worried about that growing up with or having mental illness? Or she's proven that she's been able to control her thoughts, unlike Tony Robbins. Like, again, this manifesting bullshit, it's like there's many reasons for people get many different diseases. It's not because you believe in it too much or too little. And that's a very dangerous, extremely dangerous mindset to have, that somehow people with cancer deserved it or earned that by their bad mindset.
Secondly, myself, it first started with my girlfriend's mom. She comes home one day crying hysterically. My mom, what? She's cancer. They're giving her 9 months to live. And I think if it would have been me, as a mom, as a dad, you and I both know we'll do more for those we love than we'll do for ourselves. And so when you know that, it's good to use it. But I think God used it for me, because if it been me, I probably would have been overwhelmed. But because it was her, I was like, I want to solve this. And, I'm Mr. Solution. I study everything, synthesize it. So I said, listen, success leaves clues. I learned that from my original teacher, Jim Rohn, right? I was like, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people who have been stage 4 cancer, told they're going to die, and are alive. I'm going to find out what they did. Right. Because they did something different than other people, right? And so I started reading books, and I found this book called When.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, now we're getting into so he doesn't have a connection to cancer other than, like, his wife's mother had cancer, I guess is what he said. But other than that, he fears cancer. Well, I guess he did have cancer. He has a tumor on his pituitary gland. I've heard this. I don't know if he brings this up or not, but that's what caused him to grow so tall, allegedly, and to have such a raspy voice, which is interesting. But he's obviously alive, and he's saying, like, oh, I manifested that or whatever. So now he's going to say, okay, I'm going to find out why some people survive cancer and some people don't, and find what the common thread is. Okay, it's as if he's the first person to ever think, like, maybe there's something here. I'm sure doctors have been trying to find the link for decades, but no, I'm sure it's positive thinking and spending money at conferences. I'm sure that's what the solution is. It just happens to be the thing that he can profit from. And Rachel can profit from too, to be fair.
Cancer. It's not the book I'd recommend today because there's better tools, but this is, 40 years ago. And it was written by a man who was a dentist who had pancreatic cancer, which is the most deadly. They gave him 6 weeks to live.
Okay, so we're going to get medical advice from a dentist about cancer. Cool, got it. Ready for this. Gear up, everybody.
But also...
And 12 years later, he writes this book, and he's totally healthy and vibrant. Wow. And so he had this process of detoxing the body and then giving the body certain nutrients that it needed. And so bottom line is I gave this woman, her name was Jenny. She was in her early 40s. And I said, Jenny, they say you're going to die. I said, I know you don't want to die. And we're both Christians, and we prayed about it. And I said, so I know you've prayed about it. There's got to be a solution. Please read this book. I don't know if it's the end-all and be-all, but...
If I ever get cancer and someone hands me a book that says, give your body nutrients and positive thoughts, I'm going to fucking burn the book and burn the house down. Just, I'm warning everybody in advance.
This guy had pancreatic cancer, much more severe than yours. Why don't you give it a shot? And she, at the time, she had a tumor that was protruding on her shoulder, and she had some in her feminine organs, right? It metastasized. So it was pretty brutal. That's why...
In her feminine organs? You were just talking a minute ago about lasering for female sexual pleasure. Now we're going to say female organs? My womb lands. For anyone that's on TikTok. Okay, sorry.
9 weeks to live. And I also gave her the book As a Man Thinketh, to help her guide her mind a little bit. And so I'm going back. She had a tumor that was protruding on her shoulder, and she had some in her feminine organs, right? It metastasized. So it was pretty brutal. That's why they gave her 9 weeks to live. And I also gave her the book As a Man Thinketh, to help her guide her mind a little bit. And so I'm just turning 20 years old, and all of a sudden I witnessed this woman transform. Like in 2-3 weeks, her energy was back. She felt vital. She wasn't in pain all the time. And about 8-10 weeks into it, you couldn't find anything physically on her body. You couldn't even touch and feel it. And so after she'd outlived when they said she was going to die, the doctor finally said, well, maybe we should do exploratory surgery. So she comes to me. Imagine this, Rachel. Somebody comes to you, and you're just 19, just turning 20, and somebody says...
Imagine this, Rachel. Don't say anything, because I don't want you to speak or hear about anything you have to say. But Rachel, hear this. So inclusive.
Did I do it or not? I'm like...
You're like, I don't know.
I said, if I tell you no and you die, I said... I can't tell you what to do, but if it was me, you're making a lot of progress. I'd at least wait. But the doctor convinced her. They did the exploratory surgery.
Oh, so the doctor convinced her okay, so he's saying that was the wrong idea. So the doctor says, let's do exploratory surgery. He says, I can't tell you what to do because if you die, I don't want the responsibility. Cool. And now he's saying, well, they did it anyways. So he's basically inferring that, the doctor wanted to do something that was wrong.
And they find in her entire body, the only thing found was a piece of a tumor the size of my pinky fingernail compared to what it had been. So the doctor said, this is a miracle. And she said, it is a miracle, but I did my part. Let me tell you what I did. He goes, no, this is a miracle. I don't want to hear what you said. There is no such thing. And so she started speaking at churches. She's now in her mid-80s, totally alive today. But she's responsible for this book to some extent because she changed my mindset from fear, like most people have about COVID, to no, I can.
Just throws in there. Most people have fear. Oh, COVID. I thought we were talking about your mother-in-law with cancer, or not pancreatic cancer, but shoulder and feminine organ cancer, whatever that means. Now we're talking about COVID fears.
I have to be a victim of this, and made me a biohacker. So then I become this crazy guy that's on stage. You've seen 12, 14 hours a day for 4 or 5 days with 10, 15, 20,000 people in a stadium, holding them. Well, that takes unbelievable energy. So I learned everything I could to build my body. And then I'm 32. And what happens? Tumor. Where does it come from? I didn't even know I have it.
Oh, an ad.
Did you know that by choosing just one used garment instead of buying new, you could save the largest? Hey, it's the best.
I support buying used clothes 100%, but I just roll my eyes because literally the rage talk that hopefully we're going to watch today. If not, I'll have to maybe push it to tomorrow. I'm sorry because it's getting a little bit long because I keep having to go back because I don't understand what the guy is talking about. She's talking about all these new pajamas she just bought from the non-thrift store. So it's like, okay, you just wasted 25,000 gallons by doing your shopping spree on Rage Talk. Anyways.
Packed of new clothes off, plus free shipping, 50% off, and
I feel like.
Okay, back to the scheduled programming.
Being on your first order.
I'm a helicopter pilot. So I go to get, every 2 years.
He's a helicopter pilot and a cancer doctor. Woo, Tony! Woo, 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 Tony. All right, I'm sorry. Humble brag. They're one and the same. Both of these people, Rachel and Tony.
Get approval, so you have to get another physical, and I go to this FDA physical. And
Also, I just feel like you just threw out casually, I'm a helicopter pilot. So when I didn't acknowledge it, because I'm still processing what you just said, and I feel like, okay, sure you are. Also,
I like to learn things.
But also,
They're great. I love to take people flying. Flying is such a beautiful gift.
I hope you're taking me later tonight. That feels fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but it's not interrupting. But because of that,
You're not interrupting. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Your point was pointless.
It's physical. I probably wouldn't have otherwise. I'm fit. I'm 32. There's nothing to think about, right? So many cancers happen now at that early stage of life. And so I get this call, and my assistant keeps saying, the doctor keeps calling, wants to talk to you. And I said, please ask him, just send the report. I was like your life. And you know what it's like. Go, 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 go. I'm leaving for the south of France for a seminar. I come home that night, and there's a note taped to my door from my assistant saying, you must call the doctor. He says it's an emergency. And it's unfortunately at home after midnight. So I called, no answer. And what happens in your head? I don't know about you,
You're
but
I'm dying. Someone's dead. I'm dying.
I'm dying.
We're
I was like,
dying.
but I'm going, it's not possible. I'm so religious. I take care of but I'm like, yeah, but I fly all the time. There's all this radiation, maybe. So, the head goes crazy. So unfortunately, at that point, I found a way to center myself. And I had this whole thing of that. I still use it today, actually, that, a coward dies 1,000 times. A courageous person once, right? So I'm not going to think of every scenario. Let me wake up in the morning and figure it out. Woke up with foreboding, called the doctor. And he says, I'm sorry to inform you, Mr. Robbins, but you have a tumor in your brain. And I'm like, what? How could you possibly know that? I came for a physical. You didn't do anything related to scanning my brain.
Right.
He said, well, I know you have a lot of growth hormone. I said, where'd you get that break from? My hand's bigger than your head. I got a 16 shoe. I grew 10 inches in a year. I'm 6'7". How'd you figure that out, right? He goes, this is not funny. I said, well, he said, because of that, I thought you might have gigantism. And I did some blood tests. And you have enormous amount of growth hormone in your body. And so there's a pituitary tumor. That's the only way we can resolve this level of growth hormone. So we need to do a scan on you, an MRI, and put you in surgery immediately. I'm 32 years old. Everything's like top of my world. What? So I did not respond well, I have to be honest. I was like, but wait a second. I said, well, let's say this was true. What's the prognosis? He said, well, I have to inform you before surgery, you can die, but it's unlikely. But your hormones are not going to be the same. Your whole system will be different, and you should not plan on the kind of energy you have. And I'm like, I don't have the energy. That's my life, right? So I said, could you recommend somebody for a second opinion? And he was a very gruff guy. Most doctors not like this, but he was a very gruff guy. He didn't like being questioned. And so, sure enough, because of Jenny, I knew the importance of a second opinion. But I want your audience to know something as an aside. The Mayo Clinic here in this country in 2017 did a study now that is used over and over again. 287 patients got a first opinion, got a second opinion. The second opinion was the same as the first opinion, only 12% of the time. That means 88% of the time it was different. So now even the Mayo Clinic says, even our doctors get a second opinion, and they believe by getting a second and third opinion, you refine the diagnosis. I didn't know that, but I knew from my own experience, second opinion. He was not happy. And I thought, you know what, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm going tomorrow morning south of France. I'm going to go do my seminar. But, about 3 days into the seminar, my brain's like, am I going to die? Do I really have a tumor?
My brain's going to explode. Yeah.
It's like your mind. And I know how to run my mind a lot better now, but I didn't have much mastery then, and it's a scary thing. So I came back and did the scan. I see the guy when I'm coming out of the tube, and by the look on his face.
Okay, so he gets the MRI, I guess. Eventually. He's like, I went to the south of France. I'm going to be fine, whatever. Then he goes on to a whole aside about second opinions. Okay, second opinions are great. I think, yeah, if you can afford it. But half the time in this country, when you are not a Tony Robbins private jet wielding helicopter pilot, you don't get to... You get in, you get looked at by a specialist, and you're lucky to get them within a month time frame. And then going to a second opinion is going to cost more, double probably whatever the consultation, whatever with your insurance copay is. Plus, then you got to go somewhere else and hope that you can get an opening, depending on what specialty it is. So I know this point is not necessarily like to make for everybody, but not everyone can get a second opinion. And a lot of times it's rare. You take what the doctor says and say, okay, I have to go with this. And then they do follow-up tests and things, which is what he's doing anyways. So he's trying to me, it sounds like he's trying to sow doubt into medicine, traditional medicine. He's mentioned several things during this 35 minutes so far that would sow doubt in the medical profession, that they don't have that much education. Thank you, official Stace. Oh my God. That's a big one too. I appreciate it. Ooh, I'll give you all the sound bites.
But also,
Unfollow me. I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
But you have a job because that was a $10 super chat. So
Unfollow me.
just kidding.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
but also,
Thank you. Okay. What was I saying? I don't know. It just seems like, he's talking to a privileged audience because, not everyone can get a second opinion. Half the country can't even get a first opinion. So, cry me a river, Tony Robbins. Anyways, let's go back.
It was there. Guy told me, yes, you got it. It swallowed a little of itself up. We can't explain how, but it's huge. It's there. It's forcing this growth hormone, and we must do surgery. So I decided, let me get another opinion. Let me go to an endocrinologist, not a surgeon, see if he has a different point of view. I flew to Boston because I had a friend who knew one of the top endocrinologists. Completely different guy. Hopefully you have a doctor out there, if you're listening, who's like this, totally heartfelt, heart-centered. It's hard, though. These doctors lose people, so I understand why they can get harsh, right? They're trying to protect themselves. Beautiful man. I've just loved hanging.
Again, those little comments to be like, oh, they lose people, so that means that they could be harsh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I get it, because he wants you to question medical professions and then buy his book instead as a supplement, as a replacement, which is, where I think a lot of times these holistic healers come in. They go, don't believe medical science, believe in belief and manifestation. And I don't think big pharma is like the best thing ever. And I don't think the medical system is very good either. But I don't think the solution is pseudoscience and reading Tony Robbins' book. That's where I come in. There's somewhere in the middle. We need to make systemic change within the medical systems, but the solution is not to discount everything, every medical study that's been done and say, oh, let's just light a candle and hope for the best. That's not what we should be doing.
And he says, now you do have this tumor, and we do need to do something, but don't do the surgery under any circumstances. He said, that is way too risky. There's this new drug in Switzerland. You can fly twice a year, every 6 months, get this injection, and then your arteries around the heart won't get so big, gigantism, that's how you die. So I was like, okay, doc. But I said, didn't you just tell me my arteries are the perfect size for my heart right now? And he said, yes. I said, why would I do this then? He said, well, just to be certain. That way you'll be certain it won't happen. I said, well, what if I'm already certain? Or more importantly, what if I just measured it along the way? I mean, there could be side effects from the drug. He goes, there's no side effects from this drug. It's really a great drug. I've seen some of the studies. It's fantastic. And I finally said, well, what if I didn't do it? I said, this doc wants to, he goes, well, the baker wants to bake. The surgeon wants to cut. I'm an endocrinologist. I want to drug you. And he was just so honest and so beautiful. But he goes, you want to, you could measure it each year. And if it got bigger.
He's slick, man. I'll tell you, he's slick. He is putting the seeds in there. This whole interview, this is like pointless. It doesn't even matter what he's talking about. This story may not even be true. And for the other part of it is like, oh, there's this Switzerland drug I can go and take and blah, blah, blah. Okay, 1 out of 20 billion people in the world, 7 billion people in the world, 1 out of 6 billion people in this world could qualify for that, could afford to go to. So this is a pointless story to 90% of the world's 99% of the world's population. But I'm sure it's going to tie back into why doctors suck, in his opinion. In his not humble opinion.
And applied. I said, I think that's what I'm going to do. Sure enough, 6 months later, the drug never made it through the FDA in the US because they found it caused cancer. So I missed another bullet.
Wow.
And then the end of the story is I went to 6 different doctors after him. And the last one says to me, Tony, you do the equivalent of 2.5 marathons in a weekend, physiologically. He said, I've never seen anybody recover 2 days later like you have.
Well, Rachel Hollis does marathons without training, so she one-ups you, Tony.
Unfollow me.
That's what she said. Well, if you followed me on Instagram, you would have seen that I did a marathon with no training, so I'm better.
That growth hormone, I think, is how you're able to recover. It's like a gift from God. It's like, I like that belief system. Right? It feels a lot better. Made me big so I could serve in a different way, made me strong. And he said, and I know bodybuilders that spend $1,200, a month
Trying to get this.
trying to get that same amount of hormone you're getting for free, buddy.
Yeah.
So I'm now 62 in a few weeks. This was 32. 30 years later, I've measured each year. There's been no problem. I'm fine. And the reason I tell the story is because most of us overreact. It's just like COVID, right? It's like, what makes people die of COVID according to
We all just overreact. So if we get a tumor in our brain, we should just go see 7 doctors like you and wait it out. Give me a break. This is even more offensive than I could ever have imagined in 1,000 years that this interview could be. This interview, AKA Rachel sitting and going, yeah, yes, yeah. Like, come on. I don't mean to be mean, but like that's what her contribution to this has been. This is bad. This is probably the worst episode we've covered on the show so far, or on these live streams, I have to say. I mean, it's not even her at this point. It's him spewing medical nonsense and sowing fear into people. If anything, if anyone's putting fear into the world, it's him. And to bring up COVID again, like, oh, everyone's just so scared. It's like, I'm so sick of that. Like, if you were one of the hundreds of thousands of people who died, yeah, you should have been scared because look what happened. It's always the survival's perspective, like someone who survived an illness or a war or whatever. It's like, oh, it wasn't so bad. It's like, yeah, for you. But why put yourself at unnecessary risk? For what? To prove that you're masculine, that you have some sort of like testosterone, that you can survive whatever, your immunity is better than everyone else? Give me a break. I'm so sick of that argument.
CDC, other than being really elderly with immune system compromised, it's being obese. And we can do something about that. It's the number one factor. 79.8, 80% of the people that died of COVID were obese.
Wow.
Oh, God.
And most people know that now, but we don't talk about it. And we can. It's like, want to get out of fear? Let's do something to take care of you.
Right.
But there's none of that. And then, you know what?
There's a lot of that in conservative media, 100%. Okay, so now we're blaming obesity for COVID. Okay, let's go back just to like listen to this because I was a little bit cutting that off when I went back on. So let's talk about, I hope maintenance phase covers this specific interview because I would love to hear their perspective. Okay. And this is nothing new. He's not the first one to come up with this concept. Like obesity is the cause of 1,000% of COVID. Like, okay, great. But what's the solution then in your eyes, Tony, to read a book about how doctors aren't reliable? Like, what are you doing to help anything?
That it's the number one factor. 79.8, 80% of the people that died of COVID were obese.
Wow.
And most people know that now, but we don't talk about it. And we can. It's like, want to get out of fear? Let's do something to take care of you.
Right.
But there's none of that.
Right, yeah. I talk about this in my book, Girl Wash Your Face. Pam would have died of COVID. Like, I was trying to warn everybody, guys. Like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Shut up.
And then you know what the number 2 is?
I don't.
I put this in the book because I couldn't even believe the CDC acknowledged this. They say the number 2 factor of dying is fear, anxiety and fear. Because the brain, when you get...
Wow. Thanks, Rachel, for that wonderful counterpoint. Fear is the numbers 2. So being fat and fear, that's why COVID. Okay. I don't want this to become a COVID channel. I really don't. I'm sure this is already being demonetized based on the amount of time I've said the word COVID. This is bad. Fat fearing America is what's causing COVID deaths. Okay, thanks, Tony Robbins. Thanks, Papa Robbins.
Unfollow me.
God.
fearful, it's known as psychoneuroimmunology, turns off your immune system. Your brain, when you get fearful, changes your heartbeat, makes it erratic. Your blood pressure changes. Everything changes, right? So part of what you really want to learn to do.
She's like, right. Rachel is not, she's complicit in this interview. And the fact that she's saying anything in agreement with him is disgusting.
Take control of your head and your mind. And then here's the final thing that happened. Why I finally wrote this book. I'm giving that background because I want your audience to know. I'm a 6'7" guy, and some people see me on stage to tell those people, and they think like he's some indestructible creature. I'm not. I have the same fears. I've had the same challenges that I know many people in your audience do.
Oh yeah, you have the same fears and same challenges as everyone else does, Tony? Cool. Okay, when they get diagnosed with a brain tumor, I'm sure they're gonna go to Switzerland and have that option and go to 7 different specialists and get, second opinions and 15th opinions, and then be able to relax in their spa that they have in their house and go to Fiji and spend time in the ocean and, have family members live with them in this giant mansion. Yes, just like you. Just like you. All these people are the same.
I want them to know that we can turn those around because there's new answers, but you got to educate yourself. And so the final step in that chapter was about 4 years ago, I'm being an idiot. I'm coming down in Sun Valley on a snowboard following a young semi-professional snowboarder who clearly has moves I don't have. And I wiped out. I thought I broke my neck. It was so painful. I tore all my rotator cuffs. And the pain, I've lived with pain. It was 9 pain on a 0 to 10 scale because it was nerve pain. Like I couldn't sleep. You know what I mean? Like and I slept an hour and one night, hour and 15 minutes the other night. And then I found this device, and I'll plant seeds with your audience. They're in the book. It's called a PEMF. If anybody in your audience has significant pain, they got to look in this device. And they don't have to own one. There are many people that have them, doctors that have them. But it's a pulse electronic magnetic frequency. It's a mouthful, right? And somebody came and treated me with it. And my pain went from 9 to 5 where I could sleep for the first time.
Wow.
And it was...
Wow. Amazing. I saw someone ask for this in the comments, so... Tony Robbins, Papa Robbins, this is what I have to say to you.
Get a life.
But seriously, this interview is horrible. And now he's talking about pulsing. So he doesn't believe in endocrinology, doctors, drugs, surgery. He doesn't believe in that, but pulsating... technology, unregulated somehow, most likely. Thanks, Caitlin. Woo! Okay, I'm gonna give you a special.
But also,
And
Unfollow me.
one more.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
But thank you. Thank you very much, seriously. Yeah, this guy is insane. I keep losing my thoughts. I'm sorry. I just get excited when I see super chats because the technology is working. Real technology, not this bullshit pulsating crap that's probably, and he goes, someone came and treated me. Somebody, just what, a random stranger came in and said, hey, I got this app that, put your phone on your belly and like it'll pulsate and you're like, oh yeah, I'm healed. I went from a 9 to a bazillion. Thanks, Scout Hunter. I'm just loving it. These super chats are so fun. I'm sorry. I know I get very excited because I had embedded the technology of the super chats into this like a week ago or so. And the first time I tried it, it didn't work. And now it's working. So thank you. You make it very special for me. And I appreciate the extra attention.
Miracle. It's got 3,000 studies. If you've broken a bone, it'll, like you care about your kids, you treat them with this and it grows back, it heals back in 50% of the time.
Okay, hold on. Citation needed.
Somebody came and treated me with it, and my pain went from 9 to 5 where I could sleep for the first time.
Wow.
And it was a miracle. It's got 3,000 studies. If you've broken a bone, it'll, like you care about your kids.
Thank you, Amelia Bolases.
Unfollow me.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
Get a life.
There you go. I need to have like a super chat special button that I can push. Okay. Going back, sorry.
With this, and it grows back.
Thank you.
It heals back in 50% of the time. Tons of came and treated me with it.
Okay, we're talking about the pulsating thing again, the app or whatever he's talking about, and he's talking about bones growing back. Okay.
My pain went from 9 to 5 where I could sleep for the first time.
Wow.
And it was a miracle. It's got 3,000 studies. If you've broken a bone, it'll, like you care about your kids, you treat them with this and it grows back, it heals back in 50% of the time. Tons of studies. Nerve replacement. But it wasn't enough for the amount of damage I did to heal it completely. So what do? Go to your doctor. So I go to one doctor and I know to get more than one opinion. He's like, surgery, immediately. Surgery. And then I was like, well, what's the prognosis? Well, you may not be able to lift your arm above your shoulder ever again. I mean, this is my life, right?
How are you going to make your move?
How are you going to make my move like
Or
this?
tell the DJ to stop playing the music.
And then 4 to 6 months of rehab. So you can imagine me on stage with one arm trying to make those happen. So I said to him, there's got to be a better solution. And then the fourth guy says to me, Tony.
The fourth
at
guy.
First he tells me, oh my God, you saved my marriage.
The fourth opinion that he's gotten. Rhiannon Baca. Thank you so much. Jeez, you guys are killing it today. Spoiling me. I'm never going to have a bigger ego than right now.
But also,
I really appreciate it.
Get a life.
That's to me.
Unfollow me.
That's not to you. Okay, so Tony's on his fourth opinion now. The privilege is oozing from his pores.
I didn't know who he was. I mean, I didn't know he was a client or had been to my events, but he had been. You changed my life. I made all this money in my business. He literally went on for like 15 minutes, and he finally went, okay.
His business of being a doctor? Yeah, unlikely. Okay.
Thank you for hearing all that. I really want to thank you, but now I got to be your doctor. And he literally does this. He looks at me and says, this is your spine. He puts it up on the screen. He says, life as you know it is over. And I paused, and I was like, you didn't go to my communication seminar.
Right,
Clearly, did you? Right?
clearly.
Trying to laugh. He said, this is not.
Yeah, clearly. Okay. Thanks, Rachel.
He said, you cannot snowboard, you cannot run, you cannot jump. My entire life, right? You can't do those things. He says, you see this? He goes, one good hit. And I've been in pain for 14 years. You have severe spinal stenosis. One good hit, and you may not be able to walk again. Not be able to use an arm again. I'm like, and I'm a strong guy, but if somebody punches you and you're ready, it's one thing. Somebody punches you, you're not ready. I left, I got in the car.
Thanks, Starry Nights. I appreciate that. And I know who you are.
Unfollow me.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
Just kidding. Starry Nights is currently at his job because we know each other in real life.
but also,
I do appreciate it. Thank you. Back to the important stuff.
I had to call my wife. I don't usually cry like that, but I was like, holy shit, is my life over,
Yeah.
And then, the part of me that knows better, there is a solution. You're going to find the way kicked in. And so I called Peter Diamandis, who's a rocket scientist, but he's also an MD from Harvard and a good friend of mine, a partner. And he knows everybody in the tech business. And I'd asked all these doctors about stem cells, right? Because I have some of the greatest athletes of all time are my,
My friend who's the rocket scientist that has other friends in tech. He's the best, and he's my friend, and I called him up. It's like, shut up. God, who buys this crap? I did. But I didn't buy, if he was talking like this when I was listening, I wouldn't have, I don't think. Hopefully, God, please retroactively save me from myself. But the way he talks is so annoying. Preempts everything with how amazing he is. And then like he's got a thing like NLP, that's something like neuro-linguistic programming that he uses, which is like why he says Rachel, and like repeats it, and then also says this is for your audience. Like it's a certain way to talk, to sell stuff. We can talk about that on a different day, different time. But it's frustrating to hear when you're more aware of it. It's like, stop talking to me like I'm a robot that you're trying to like get the algorithm to work. I mean, it definitely works on people, but like it's very frustrating once you're aware of it when someone's speaking to you like this.
People that I coach and my clients. And so like Cristiano Ronaldo, like he was supposed to be out for 3 months, greatest soccer player of all time, 2.5 weeks, he's back because of stem cells, right? So they all said, no, it won't work. So I said, Peter, who's the best expert on stem cells in the world? And he said, well, he's somebody you met once. I said, really? He goes, Dr. Bob Harari, and he was a neurosurgeon. I said, he knows about stem cells? He said he's one of the fathers of stem cells. He did these original studies where they took old rats 38 years ago, almost 40 years ago, gave them young rats blood, and they got younger. Their skin turned, their hair turned black again, their muscles got stronger. And then they reversed it and gave the old blood to the young rats, and they got older. Yeah. So it started that thing that you heard about in Silicon Valley, young blood, they were all looking for. It was crazy, but it led to discovering what stem cells really do and how they are. So he said to me, Tony, and by the way, meeting him is like, somebody says, I want to learn about basketball. And you say, well, meet my friend LeBron James. He's that smart. So I meet Bob, and he says, Tony, a lot of people in America go get stem cells, use their own body to do it. It's called autologous, meaning the ones from you. He said, but, maybe for an elbow or a wrist that could work. But once you turn 40, they drop off the cliff. And he said, and you're 53, doesn't matter how fit you are, those stem cells are dropping. He said, so for this, that won't do it. You need like the force of life force. Yeah. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you need like 4-day-old stem cells. And I said, well, I don't want fetal tissue under any circumstance. He goes, no, it's not fetal tissue. They don't do that anymore. I said, and he would never recommend it. I said, well, what is it? He goes, well, when a baby's born.
I love this chapter in the book.
Isn't it beautiful?
It blew my mind.
Yeah, you've got the force of life in the placenta. Right. It's like the 3D printer of the baby. Right. It's got all of the protein factors and all the stem cells, and you have the cord. And most parents now, when you're having a baby in the hospital, they give you that option. Bob's the one.
What are we talking about? So you're no fetal tissue, but we're going to use the placenta and we're going to use the cord. And now he's fine calling those the anatomically correct words, but we had to say feminine organs earlier. This man. And Rachel, my favorite chapter is about your receiving womb lands surgery or whatever's going to happen, stem cells from a baby. Very weird. This guy's had like every advancement in medical science since, I don't know what, polio vaccine. This guy's got it all, man.
That option.
That's so crazy.
So, he's the guy. So I said, okay, so what do I do? He goes, I'll tell you where to go. They'll give you cord stem cells, 4 days old, force of life. And he said, you can always go back to the surgery, but I believe this will heal you. So I did.
How is this relevant to anybody other than him, who's got 25 rocket scientist friends that are also neurologists, that are also, technology investors? Like, who else is this relatable to? Hashtag, what made you think I wanted to be relatable?
Actually, 4 days, 3.5 days. And with just one IV a day for 20 minutes, an IV and a shot. And the first day, I felt really tired. I went to sleep early, which is not usually what I do. And the second day, I had a cytokine response, kind of a cold and shaking thing for about 15 minutes. I wasn't scared. I knew what it was. And then I went to sleep and I woke up.
Don't worry, guys. He wasn't scared. He knew what it was.
But also,
it was only 15 minutes.
Unfollow me.
Okay, Tony, shut up.
The next morning, and not only was my shoulder perfect, I have the MRI. This was 4 years ago. I have no problem, never had another problem with my shoulder. But also, I had no pain in my spine for the first time in 14 years, Rachel. So I became obsessed. I want to know everything about stem cells. Right. But what I found out is it isn't just stem cells. There's this revolution in precision medicine and regenerative medicine that's been happening. But again, most people are 20 years behind, docs. They don't have time to update what they're doing. So most of them don't know about it, or they think it's hype. But you go to Nobel laureates, the 150 I did, you go to the best scientists in the world, the best doctors in the world.
What does is this interview? Thank you, Jennifer. Oh, from Canada. Well, we're not allowed to have Canadians here, so.
Unfollow me.
I just wanted to tell you. I'm just kidding. I was born in Canada, technically.
But also,
Now I live in Florida. Can you guess which weather is better?
All know about it. And those people
Thank you.
know get the benefits. Like where ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is pain. Ignorance is disease. Ignorance can be death.
So now I have all this information, and I know that stem cells exist now. I'm 20 years in the future with medicine because I read Tony Robbins' book. What am I supposed to do with that information? Go where? Use what money? And what are they going to start researching on me? Like, how do I implement this in my life? I'm sure the answer is going to be going to my conference and eating some sort of supplement that he sells too. Because otherwise, what is the point of all this? This is like such a useless conversation. It's not even a conversation, a useless monologue in which he is just word salading, regurgitation on top of Rachel, and she is just lapping it up. Just yummy, yum, yum. Sorry.
So I got invited by the Pope to speak. This is like, the story's
Did you
unbelievable.
fly there
It's
in
the
your
end of the story.
helicopter?
No, I didn't fly my helicopter. It'd be a long helicopter flight. But I got invited. The Vatican every 2 years has the biggest conference on stem cell and regenerative medicine. And they bring all the best scientists from around
The Vatican has the biggest stem cell conference? What?
the world in here. And suddenly what happens? I get to meet all these scientists. I'm supposed to be the cleanup speaker. I went to every class. And I met people sent home to die. Not harshly, it's just their treatments, they couldn't help them anymore with their cancers. And I met at least a dozen, more than a dozen. And I met Dr. Carl June and got something called CAR T cells. And here they are 6 years later, totally healthy, cancer-free. I met Jack Nicklaus, the greatest golfer of all time. And he couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes with unbelievable pain. They're going to fuse his spine, which only works about half the time. And even then, you lose all your mobility. And he did stem cells instead. Now he's 82 years old and plays golf and tennis again. So that came out. I was like, okay, I want to do like I did with Money Master the Game. I'm going to go interview the best on earth, and I'm going to bring this to the general population, make it really simple, and show them what's here right now, and then things that...
Oh, he coughed. Uh-oh. He coughed, everybody. Now he's going to have to go get stem cell surgery real quick. He had a cough. He doesn't cough. He doesn't care. He does chills. He knows what it is. He's fine. He's not scared. He's not scared of a cough.
Within 12 to 36 months. So I can do this today, and this is what's coming.
Right.
And not 20 years in the future. And so that's what we did, and we're donating all the money from the book. I got Bob Harari to join me as a co-author, and Peter, and I got them convinced to do what I've done my last 3 books. We donated all the money. I got fed when I was a young boy, so I've been feeding.
So he's donating all the money from his book. Prove it. I want to see the proof. I want to see the paper trail. I want to see that money. I want to see it all, because he said he kind of glossed over. And he started changing the words, and he's like, we're gonna donate all the money. All what money? All the profits, all of the revenue, all of the what? I want proof. All of your take from it. So like, let's say, because he's a co-author, his percentage of the author being an author on this book, he's gonna donate that, or the whole book itself. Like I need to know, because that seems like he's kind of glossing over this, and it's important to point that out.
For Feeding America, I said I'd feed 100 million people every year to 1 billion people in 10 years. We're 7 years in it. We're 850 million meals. So this will provide another 20 million meals, and the balance of the profits are helping with Alzheimer's, cancer, and heart disease. It's a big story, but
Yeah, but what I loved about that chapter.
That's rad. Alzheimer's, cancer, and hunger. He is solving it all, everybody. Papa Robbins does it again.
There was a
Okay, let me go back. Rachel's about to talk for the first time in like 45 minutes.
people every year to 1 billion people in 10 years. We're 7 years in it. We're 850 million meals. So this will provide another 20 million meals, and the balance of the profits are helping with Alzheimer's, cancer, and heart disease. It's a big story, but
Yeah, but what I loved about that chapter was a placenta is typically medical waste.
That's right.
It's just being thrown away.
insane.
And also
Holy shit. Thank you, Kelsey. 18 stinking American dollars. Well, you don't have to worry, and never,
Unfollow me.
because you're from America, I'm assuming, since it came in dollars. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that a lot. You have no idea. This is crazy.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
I'm assuming you have a job, because that's an insane amount of money. That's a lot. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
but also,
Never.
Unfollow me.
Okay. And if you needed to know,
Get a life.
okay. Thank you. That's awesome. 18 stinking American dollars. And I'll even send you my socks. No, I won't. Maybe. No, I won't.
Many cultures, they actually honor the placenta, or
Yes.
they turn it into something and they eat it. They
That's
turn
right.
it into powders and pills, and was
Okay, let's see what freaking wisdom she's got. Let go back. Sorry.
million people every year to 1 billion people in 10 years. We're 7 years in it. We're 850 million meals. So this will provide another 20 million meals.
I went
and the
back,
balance
so
of the
this is
profits
a
are helping
repeat
with
part.
Alzheimer's, cancer, and heart disease. It's a big story, but
yeah. But what I loved about that chapter was a placenta is typically medical waste.
that's right.
It's just being thrown away.
It's insane.
And also, in so many cultures, they actually honor the placenta, or
Yes.
they turn it into something and they eat it. They
That's
turn
right.
it into powders and pills, and so it's almost like that the information was there and we just didn't have it.
That's right.
And to,
Thanks, Lindsay. Oh, you're from Canada, so I'm sorry, but
Unfollow me.
Canada, they have free medical where you can not have to work and get free medicine.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
Doesn't matter. You can still get medical help in Canada. So we ignore them here. We ignore Canada here.
But also,
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, we're talking about the placenta, how the ancient wisdom of Rachel Hollis, the placenta has been used for years. We are just too stupid to realize that it has so many properties of greatness, apparently. Thanks, Rachel, for that lovely addition to this conversation of nonsense.
see that seriously, that chapter, the spray gun that
Yeah, isn't that
for a
amazing?
burn victim.
So the
that-
people know burn victims normally, people don't know this. The reason they look so scarred, because besides the fact they're burned, is the way to keep them alive is they use cadaver.
Besides the fact that burn victims are burned, they look like this because, God.
Skin over their face. And now they can take your own stem cells, and this is in about a dozen hospitals, spray it on you, and there's a picture there, you saw
Yeah.
it, and you go to video, and literally 6 weeks later, you can't tell they were burned. I mean, that's the world we live in right now. But if you don't know, you're gonna do what everybody else does, and your child could be burned, and you wouldn't know this. Now, if your child burned, you need to know this exists.
Yeah.
And you can go make this happen.
What? There's a gun that's gonna spray you with skin cells, but before you had to use cadavers? Can we get some, again, links in the show notes so I can look up this stuff? Because this could be very helpful to somebody, but the way that it's being talked about, I have no idea what to look up. Paint skin gun? What do I look up?
We're talking about all of these advancements
I guess in the book, I suppose.
in medicine, which is so inspiring and exciting, and you can feel your passion. You can feel your passion in the book too.
Good.
I'm curious, what's the balance for the power of our minds? Sort of going back to a more spiritual side of, like you talked about, you can worry enough and fear enough that you are creating illness in your body.
Yeah.
So what is the balance for people of inform yourself, get help, trust in God, but lock your car?
Yes.
So
exactly right.
how do you, when you approach your own health or your family's health, how do you balance those two things?
I start with the mind and emotions, and to me, that's not, I don't tell people to believe spiritually or religiously, but I believe prayer is a very useful thing. And reminding yourself you're not the center of the universe and asking for guidance and help and other things do that. I personally believe that, but not everybody.
Yeah, everyone remember that they're not the center of the universe. Papa Robbins is. Remember that. That's what he wants you to know.
And I don't tell people they have to, but it starts there. But there's also, when you have a spiritual side of your life, there's a lot less anxiety because you believe there's something greater than yourself.
Right.
And then you do your part.
Yeah.
Like you said, I use it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, when I was in a spiritual mindset, I was so worried that all my thoughts were controlling my mind and my life and that people were going to be hurt because I had negative thoughts about them. Yeah, I was much more relaxed. Thanks. Not true.
A similar metaphor when they say it's, trusting God and tie up your camels, that type of thing, right? But what most
That's literally what she just said, but he said the biblical version, and she said, trust or believe in God, but lock your car. Now he's going to say, well, trust in God, but lock your camels. Okay, she just said that. Literally, listen to her. Listen to women. Listen to Rachel. She just said that.
know is the power of their mind. So there's an entire last 2 chapters of the book. If no one reads anything else, I say, please read those 2 chapters, because if you do everything physically well, you don't manage your mind and emotions, you'll get sick.
Right.
And so
Right. No,
placebos,
not right.
let's just take a moment for that. So everybody's heard of placebos. an inert substance that somehow is used to heal the body. Well, by that inert substance, your brain becomes convinced something happened, and then it does what it needs to do to heal. So most people don't know, they were only discovered in World War II. It was discovered because this surgeon, it was actually the nurse that did this, but the surgeon was trying to save people's lives, and you got to give them morphine because of the pain, and also you don't want them going into shock because then they die. And they ran out of morphine. And so the doctor's freaking out, and a nurse, who they don't even say her name, they just said a nurse. I wish we knew because she was a really important person. She handed him a syringe, filled it with saline solution, and said, "Doc, we still have some more morphine," because she was wanting to comfort the people there. So he believed it. So when he looked in the eyes of these people, he said, "You will be out of pain in the next 2 minutes," like he would normally say. "I know this seems insane. You'll be fine. You're going to make it." Not one went into shock. 90% of them were out of pain, and they gave them no drugs.
Right.
So after World War II, he went back to Harvard, and he was the doctor that started the studies that now we almost compare every drug to a placebo. But what they don't talk about a lot of times is often placebos are as or more effective than the drugs, but you don't make billions of dollars talking about placebos, right? So, but here's something.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Because the placebo effect is going to a fucking conference and being told that you can do it and then feeling like that has done anything for you. That's a placebo. And you are the recipient of that placebo effect, Papa Robbins and Rachel Hollis. This conversation is so stupid and it's getting me so heated and I'm so annoyed. I'm sorry.
But also,
I'm glad we're doing this together.
Your audience should know, because it tells you the power of your mind. The size of the intervention affects your certainty and how quickly you heal.
Okay, say that again. Break that
I'll
down.
give you an example. A small pill versus a large pill, and we see a very big difference in the speed and power of healing.
No way.
Even though there's nothing in the pill, okay? A injection, much bigger response to an injection than a pill, because you go, wow, something really happened. A fake surgery, a placebo surgery, the VA, I put this in the book, Veterans Administration, was doing arthroscopic surgery on people's knees. So they decided to take a third of the people in a study and do a fake surgery, placebo surgery, meaning they just put a scar across here, like they cut them up and sewed them up, but didn't touch the knee. A year later, when they did the evaluations on how much pain do you have, how much mobility, the people that had no surgery said no pain, they're totally healed. And the group that did had all kinds of aches and pains and problems still of the actual surgery. So the VA won't even pay for that surgery anymore. That's how powerful it is to give you an idea. But it goes beyond that. Harvard did a study where they didn't give you a placebo. They give you a real drug. So they hand you a barbiturate, but they put in a giant pill that's red. This sounds like a movie, right? And they go, "This is an amphetamine. You need to be prepared. Your body's going to speed up. Don't panic when your heart starts beating so fast and everything else." And then they give it to you. Well, guess what? To a man or a woman, their bodies should slow down. They're beginning to drug a barbiturate, shake you through the floor, sped up through the roof. And then they did the opposite. They could do the opposite.
So what's the lesson here? Just don't take any medication ever again? That's what I'm getting. The vibe I'm getting is like medication is all fake. Placebo works just as great, which is not true, but that's what he's making it seem like, oh, placebos are just as effective as surgery. Placebos are just as effective. And if it's a bigger one, it's going to be better for you. I'm not a medical scientist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not involved in medicine, but I believe, based on my very limited understanding, that placebos work to a point, but that's why they use them in trials to show how much better the actual medicine worked versus the placebo effect. If both people who take the pill and have the placebo have the same outcome, okay, then neither one works. I don't want he's making this like little, yes, there's some truth to it, like 1% truth, blowing it up to be like 1,000% truth that's not even real, and then having it explained like, oh, medical doctors don't do anything, pills don't do anything, just get off your medication and just go, woo, flash everybody at my latest conference. It's like, that's basically what he's saying. That's how I'm receiving it. And Rachel is just on board, which is embarrassing for her.
So somebody with a blue pill told them the opposite and got the opposite response. So Dr. Ellen Langer is from Harvard. She started mindfulness, one of the people that began it. She's done studies on aging.
Oh yeah, if she's still alive right now, she did not start mindfulness. Idiot.
Everybody's concerned about aging. Well,
God.
So much of it has to do with your belief systems about it. And our culture in America is very different, let's say, in Asian culture, where elderly people are often held as wives. Right. Very different here. We're obsessed with youth, right?
Yeah.
So she took a group, I think people in their 70s, and took them off to the Catskills, to this old place, redid the entire place where every poster on the wall, old TV shows, was from 35 years earlier. And then she said, you must speak for the next 2 weeks in the first person as if it was 19, whatever it was, 35 years earlier. And what was amazing, they did all their vitals and so forth before they went in, and they did it afterwards. Well, first of all, when they came back, their eyesight improved. There's no way to describe how that's humanly possible. Their blood pressure balanced.
Maybe because they went on vacation to the Catskills and got to do something different. How about that?
Sugar balanced. And they look, you see the photographs, you wouldn't even believe, they look so much younger. So it's so much of what we don't have. And I'll give you the last example. It's so powerful. So there's a man named Norman Cousins, Dr. Norman Cousins.
He just goes off on a tangent, like doesn't wrap it up to mean anything. Like their eyesight improved. They looked so amazing. You have to see the pictures. Anyways, on up to this thing. It's like, it doesn't give you enough time to like think like, does this matter? Does this mean anything to me? Does this story have any grain of truth or meaning to this bigger idea, this bigger picture of what's going on? The answer is probably no. That's why he moves on to the next thing so freaking fast.
Oh, you've heard of him.
I'm trying to wrap up in the next 10 minutes, so okay, we're gonna go through this quickly. I'm sorry.
I know him, but I don't know why.
Well, people know in the back because he was so famous. He's kind of the father of psychoneuroimmunology, the idea that your mind affects your immune system, like the CDC talked about, right? I met him when I was 24, 25 because I was doing these fireworks.
Here comes the anti-vax rhetoric. I can feel it in my bones, in my bones that will never break because I believe that they won't. I'm ready.
And he was fascinated. So we developed this great friendship. In those days, there weren't podcasts. I just had this little cassette program that I interviewed people and we sent it out to people. And he said, Tony, your mind is more powerful than you think of. This is a man who, by the way, was diagnosed with this deadly disease, didn't want to do the drugs, the side effects were too intense. So decided when he was in pain, as his body was breaking down, he thought he could heal his brain by being in a different state of mind. Laughter. He believed if he laughed enough, that's probably how you know him, that he could heal his body. So whenever he felt pain, he would go off for 4 or 5 hours and watch all these old silly movies and laugh as hard as he could. And I think it was 11 months, and he was cured of the disease, which no one has ever seen happen before. Not only get out of pain, but literally his immune system took over. He wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness. So there's buildings, at UCLA named after him. He's an amazing man. But he told me a story I never forgot. He said, Tony, not only can you make yourself sick or healthy by your mind, but you can also make other people sick or healthy by a viral response. I said, how do you get a viral response to your mind? He said, well, if somebody's around you and they yawn, you're like, oh, don't do that. And you find yourself yawning. Or somebody's laughing. It's not that funny, but they're having such a good time. You find yourself laughing. He goes, that happens with people's idea of illness. So, well, give me an example. He said, well, I'll tell you, I went to a college football game. He said, I'm in the stands. He said, all of a sudden, this person about 20 rows away starts projectile vomiting. And they call for the doctor who's on staff. They come and grab this man. They're trying to see what's wrong with him. And they're trying to ask him questions. They calm him down. They're putting cold presses on him and to see, like, what did you do today? Trying to find something different to see what the source would be. And the man mentioned that about 30 minutes before, he'd gone to the vending machine and bought this coat. So the doc thought, maybe there's something in the electronics there that's leaking. There's some poison that's getting in there. So no one else would get sick, he announces over the loudspeaker at halftime, please avoid the vending machines. We may have a real challenge with them. We have a man who got very sick. We just want to be careful. He said, Tony, it was like a cartoon. He said, within 5 to 10 minutes, people are projectile vomiting all over the place. They had 12 ambulances taking people to 2 different hospitals.
Thank you, Lillian Massey. I appreciate it.
But also,
I'm running out of time, but I really appreciate it, I swear.
I'm sorry that you don't have a job.
And you're here with us, but never.
Unfollow me.
Okay? Thank you.
And then about an hour and a half later, they did these tests and found there was nothing wrong with it, and they told everybody it was fine, and everybody got healed. So that's the power your mind has. And so most of us, when we have kids, man or woman, you tend to worry more, right? It's just the nature of things. But sometimes those worries are not only sucking the energy out of your body, but also your kids learn to be fearful because they sense you're fearful. And so one of the greatest things is learning how to take control of your mind. And so I have a whole chapter on the 3 decisions that people make that if you take control of those, you're going to be in a completely different place.
Right.
And then training yourself to have a habit, because most people have a highway to stress and a dirt road to happiness. But that's just conditioning.
Right.
And there's simple ways to condition yourself. So after a while, you have a highway to happiness and a dirt road to stress, and then you have a different life. Then mothering, fathering, business, life, relationships start to transform.
Right. I want people to hear this because just in case they haven't been to you.
I have no idea what the frick that story was. I don't even have anything to comment on it except that it was purposeless and completely unhinged. Much like this entire podcast. Okay, Rachel's talking again, and I'm assuming she's going to wrap it up soon because there's only a couple minutes left.
W before, understanding that they have the ability to reprogram their mind.
Yes.
And I think so many people, women especially, sort of accept it as a lot in life. Kind of like, well, this is the way we're wired, or this is how my people are, or this is our genes. And it's not true. I mean, everything you're saying in the last 20 minutes, it makes me want to like, I don't want to break your mirror, but I sort of do, because why aren't people talking about this? Our minds are so...
Because it's misinformation and it's anecdotal, and statistically, if everyone stops taking medicine and believes that placebos are just as good as getting surgery, then a lot of people are going to die, Rachel. That's why they're not talking about this.
Powerful. And we reach for the quick fix, right? Yeah. We want the alcohol, we want the pill, we want the thing that's going to solve it
or even
immediately.
Tylenol.
She's the one that likes cocktails and always says she's rewarding herself with wine and that she needs more tequila and that she can't. That's your own. Don't say other people. You.
Right.
I write about that in the book. You can't believe the side effects of Tylenol. It burns holes in your liver, and it gets promoted for things that it does nothing for. Yeah. It's just really good marketing. It's been around forever. So yeah, but
stem cells are just totally, there's no problems at all. Lasering to increase your sexual feminine organs is totally safe, but Tylenol needs to be feared. What happened to don't be afraid? What happened to fear? If you pretend that the pill doesn't hurt you, it won't. Why are you telling people it's going to burn holes in your skin? This makes no sense. It's all contradictions. I hate it.
Something outside of ourselves. But you mentioned something really important. This is my lot in life. This is my DNA, right? This is my genome. Most people say DNA, right? Those 3.2 billion letters from your mom and 3.2 from your dad that make up the genes of your body and genome, they do not determine your destiny. Doctors and anybody who's really in science knows it today. They still teach it in some schools, but it's not true.
Right. Some schools.
It's the plan, but which genes turn on or off? Two people have the same genome and have a totally different reaction. Which genes get turned on or off determines your life. And that's based on something called the epigenome. EPI, epi means above.
Right.
So a good metaphor to keep it simple, imagine the piano is your DNA and the piano player is your epigenome. But that's affected by your diet, how much you move or exercise, how much you sleep or don't sleep, what kind of food you eat, how many chemicals you're exposed to, radiation. But there's something really cool. It's a little technical, but it's in the book, so you don't have to remember this. But I want people to know, besides the mind, you want to give the body the energy so the mind works. Right? They affect each other.
Right.
And so there's a man who's probably the top longevity expert in the world, Dr. Sinclair out of Harvard.
He's my friend.
He's 53 years old, but he's 33 years old biochemically. His dad is 80. When his dad was, I think, 71, he started to lose cognition. He couldn't, exercise anymore. He stayed home and started to dissipate. So when he started discovering these ways of slowing and actually, in some cases, appears to reverse the aging, which sounded, if you said that 3 years ago, people would say you're insane. But there have been a Nobel Prize winner that did it in animals, and then David's done it in animals, and then David started using himself and his father. His father now outlifts him in the gym, walks 2 to 3 miles a day to give you perspective.
Who cares?
And what's making that change? So here's the magic.
What?
Most people know that this force of energy comes from every cell in your body called mitochondria. They are the furnaces that build your energy. Those mitochondria create something called ATP. It's like the batteries. If someone gets cyanide, the reason people die in 30 seconds is it cuts all the oxygen and literally you can't create energy in the body, right? So most people have heard that. It's interesting.
No one's heard that.
But what
are
they
you
don't know
talking
is
about?
there are 7 specific genes. There's a term for them called sirtuins. No one has to remember that. But these 7 genes do 2 really important and competing things. And this will help moms at home and help them understand the people they care about. The first thing that these genes do is they turn on and off your genes.
I'm glad they can help moms and the people they care about. Shut up. What is he even talking about? This is a new thing, by the way. Mitochondria. That's like the new buzzword now in this pseudoscience self-help space. The mitochondria is the cause and the cure of everything, apparently. Once you start to look at these people, these spiritual gurus, you're going to start seeing it a lot. Okay, we're almost
If the right genes are turned on, you're going to be great. You're going to stay young. The wrong ones are on, you're going to age quickly. You're going to break down from disease. Second thing,
you're going to age quicklier. This reminds me of Biglier. type of figure. Quicklier, biglier, bigly. Okay.
Special genes do is they reduce inflammation in the body, which is the basis of most breakdown. And the third thing to do is help food get converted for mitochondria as the source of energy. That alone makes them priceless. But then they have a second task. As you get older, once you leave your 20s and 30s and enter 40s and 50s and beyond, your DNA gets corrupted by radiation, by exposure, by chemicals in the environment. And so no problem. These sirtuins, these master genes, go in and clean it up. Just one problem. They need a fuel called NAD. And NAD drops.
Not actually doing anything, which is what this conversation is.
The clip in your mid-40s, and by 50s, you literally lost 50% of it. So now there's no fuel for these master genes. So now your inflammation increases in your body. Genes that should be off get turned on. You have less energy for everything, including cognition. And all this is competing with trying to keep your DNA cleaned up. And as you get older, you accumulate those challenges. So right at the time you need it most, it all starts to break down. And that's what we call aging. There is a solution. It sounds like a horrible thing. A metaphor for it would be like if you had a beautiful mansion and you were lucky enough to have this incredible young staff and everything always looks perfect.
Like
because
me.
it breaks down, they fix it. You don't even notice it. Boom, 7 billion cells die, 7 billion liver cells are put right back in place. That's your body. Those sirtuins. But as they get older, your staff gets a little senile, forgets things, and now you don't give them the resources, and all of a sudden your mansion turns to a collapse. That's aging. So how do we prevent that? Literally, the science today is showing how they're able to not only slow it, but in some cases start to reverse it. So those NAD that have dropped off can be brought back. And the way it can be brought back is there's something that helps create it, a precursor. It's the last term I'll give you, NMN, like never, mother, never, okay? And that NMN is something your body naturally makes, but you can get in a supplemented form. That then lets the NAD fuel, so now you're certain.
Oh, a supplement is the cure to everything. How did I predict that this would be the outcome? Okay, we got like literally a minute left. I don't know how she's gonna wrap this up. This is part one, just to remind everybody. This is only part one of this miraculous conversation about all the things that you can solve by just believing and buying Tony's book. It's quite the adventure, I will say.
Do all this incredible work that keeps you young and strong. That's how he's 53, but really 33. Because he has a series of ways he stimulates that. So the only problem is, I have a company that does this, and I'm now, David's a dear friend.
Oh, shocking. He's got a company that sells supplements that can solve all these problems. Whoa, who would have thought?
Right? And so we tested 6 products on the market. Some were like $39 a month, some were $129 a month. God. Not a single one had any NMN in it. And it's advertised as NMN. And I said, as the lab guy, I said, are these people just lying and cheating? He goes, well, most of it comes from China, but he said, I don't think that's what they're doing usually. It just breaks down within about 30 to 45 days. And as a result of that, there's none in there. It's inert, right? So David has a way, he's stabilized something. But here's the really cool thing that's coming. So you can get NMN now that will start to change all this. If you're early 40s, you do this, you'll see a major change in your energy. It takes about 14 days.
Okay.
All right? I'll give you an example.
I'm 39. Can I start now?
Yes, you can start now. Okay. And most things you want to start before you need them.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you want to optimize. Yeah. Instead of waiting until there's a problem, let me optimize so I don't have a problem. That's the philosophy of this book. That's the philosophy of regenerative medicine.
The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me.
Obviously, because someone would have cut this off an hour ago if it was produced by someone with actual skills. Okay, I am so sorry that I have to wrap this up quickly. That was a nightmare. I am thoroughly... I don't even know what to say. I am thoroughly disgusted by Rachel's complicitness into this. Complicitness? I don't know. The fact that she's complicit in this interview and doesn't push back on anything, she literally just goes, oh yeah, I love that part of the book when you talked about this crazy fringe of medical science, one person's anecdote to explain an entire, category of disease and the solutions for it. It's very dangerous. It's very unhelpful. I have a lot of problems with this. Medical stuff really, really, really grinds my gears because it is so important that we don't listen to people who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to health and wellness, especially someone who owns a supplement company, as he just, announced so just randomly, not to promote his own stuff or anything, I'm sure. But yeah, I cannot support this. I do not support this. Happy International Women's Day. This man did not let Rachel speak for 1 minute. I think she spoke maybe for a total of maybe 40 seconds. And basically he cut her off at every turn to spew more fake statistics, contradict himself, and make up false claims, and also sow seeds of doubt in the entire medical system, doctors, their profession, as well as COVID and vaccines, without saying it, but saying it underneath with undertones. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I have to go get in the car immediately right now. But tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Wednesday? Let's do Rach Talk tomorrow. We'll watch that. Talk about red flags with her boo thing. I'll add some sound bites when I get home tonight. Thank you so much for the super chats. It's always super fun and helps me when this probably gets demonetized because I said the COVID word 20 times. That helps sustain the show. So, and thank you for all the comments and stuff. It really keeps it lively and moving. Okay, goodbye. See you guys later. I don't love you because I don't know you, but I appreciate you being here and watching. Peace. Goodbye.